away from not being in last place. That's the consolation right now.
I have no chance of catching you at this point, so that's cool.
Probably not.
Okay. We'll continue to talk
What do
about
I win?
I have no clue.
Yeah,
well, you got to beat the listeners first.
So if I beat the listeners take me out to dinner, or what's going on? What do we do here?
I don't know. We'll have to figure that part of it out. We'll have plenty to talk about with the Nashville Predators a little bit later. Chris Mason joining us later in the show, and like I said, probably the most impressive win for the Predators of the season as of yesterday. So still playing hard and executed really well yesterday on that front. But, of course, Joe, the story from yesterday that is reverberating around here, the beginning unofficially of NFL free agency, the legal tampering period was underway yesterday in the NFL, and moves came hot and heavy. Let's start with the moves that the Titans did make, and that is bringing in Danico Autry, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts, on the defensive line. Bud Dupree coming in, edge rusher, formerly from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Kendall Lamb as well, a reserve offensive tackle. And some of the money, when you look at this, the moves made or reportedly made by the Titans yesterday, Danico Autry, a 3-year deal worth $21.5 million, according to Ian Rappaport. Bud Dupree, a multi-year deal, perhaps worth $16.5 million per season.
5 for 85.
And then offensive tackle Kendall Lamb, 2-year deal up to $8.5 million. So Titans throwing around some money yesterday.
There you go. Well, and so you go early in the day, you lose Jonnu Smith, you lose Corey Davis, and Titans fans are
freaking
out a little bit. And okay, can't pay those guys. Who are you going to pay? No money. I mean, you can go through the math. Where's the money? And then in the evening, John Robinson strikes. The Autry one is one I had not really thought about. It's kind of interesting, too. I think he's really good. I like the signing a lot. I like that the best of everything that's been done because I just think we've talked about it. It's important up front to have somebody else who can be disruptive and make plays, and I think that Autry and Jeffrey Simmons could be a really nice combo up there. Interesting that the Colts could have paid him.
Yeah.
The Colts, obviously they got DeForest Buckner up there, but I like that you take him from the Colts too, and anytime you can do that to a division rival. All indications are he was healthy, and I know he missed a little bit of time last year, but really good player. He's 30. He's going to be 31.
Right.
So he's getting up there a little bit, but I like that a lot. Bud Dupree, look, there you go. You're a high-priced edge guy. You went and got him. I've said all along I like Matt Judon better than him because of the ACL and, because of the Steelers make it tough. It's not just T.J. Watt. Stephon Tuitt is such a monster up front for them. All those guys were having really good seasons last year. But, you watched the Bud Dupree film last night, and you can talk yourself into it pretty quickly. If he can come back healthy, and usually ACLs, you can these days get back to 100%. He could be the answer. He could be the next Clowney, or he could be the anti-Clowney.
Well, it was interesting because when I saw the reports that Bud Dupree was coming to the Titans, my first thought was, okay, well, I've talked about my concerns with his ACL recovery, but you and I have also said, ACL, it's not anywhere near as big of a deal as it used to be. It used to be borderline a death sentence to your career, and it's just not that way anymore. It's become relatively routine. But also, what does he look like away from T.J. Watt, on the other side of T.J. Watt? Obviously, the Titans, they don't have a T.J. Watt here. So this is Bud Dupree's show now. And then I saw the price tag at $16.5 million per year, and I was like, oh, man, that is a lot of money. We were talking about Bud Dupree maybe somewhere around the $11 or $12 million range, I think, at some point.
No, I thought he was 14, 15.
I thought 11 or 12. I saw some reports that were 11 or 12.
Really?
Yes.
I have to go back and look.
I was blown away by $16.5 million.
I have to go back and look at those Pro Football Focus things. I thought they had
that may have been where I saw it. I don't know. I can't remember.
That low, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I thought he was about, Judon went for 14?
Yeah.
Right? Is that what? Yeah, that's what I figured they'd both be around there. But yeah, 16.5, a little bit more than that. And well, they found the money.
They did.
We'll see how much more they have because they still need to, sign a receiver or two here, tight end or two here, et cetera, et cetera. But hey, it's a big swing, and obviously, John Robinson's view of this is, you know what, the offense still has the star power. And I like the offensive line bolstering there. I mean, I think Kendall Lamb, I think that's a good signing. It's kind of like you can get it back to having that swing tackle that you had with Dennis Kelly when you had Jack Conklin. And, of course, he was swing tackle for the Browns. So I think that's, you get offensive line, Tannehill, Henry, Brown, and TBD.
Well, this is another repercussion of the Isaiah Wilson bust of Kendall Lamb being here.
Yes.
Isaiah Wilson works out, Kendall Lamb's not here.
Well, and it also, to me, probably means the draft. I mean, it's certainly you could always draft an offensive lineman, and maybe if anything, I would guess an interior offensive lineman in the draft at some point.
Yeah,
but it makes it less of an urgent thing to draft someone. I look at the draft now with this, and I think that first round pick probably going to be a receiver or a corner.
Yeah,
right. That would be my guess. Now I understand John Robinson loves best available and all that. But, I mean, need still usually factors into the equation. So that's what would be my guess. Maybe there's still an edge guy that they absolutely love that they take. I mean, you can't have – it's not bad to have depth. You don't want Bud Dupree and Harold Landry to take every single snap this year.
No, but it does feel like more now that maybe you go looking for that guy in the third round or something like that.
Could be.
Instead of – that absolutely being your first round.
Yeah,
pick.
it's certainly it's no longer the absolute.
Right.
You got to get one of these guys. Ojulari, we've talked about all the guys. Jalen Phillips, et cetera, et cetera. I say they move up and get Kyle Pitts.
Hey,
there you go. You got some draft capital. You got an extra compensatory pick here in the third round. Go get Kyle Pitts. Trade Landry, and you got Bud Dupree now.
Yeah, you got Bud Dupree. Everything's fixed now, right? Let's go to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. CD texts in and says, "I remember the last time we signed a high-level pass rusher with injury issues."
Yes.
Don't have to go back that far.
You do not. You do not. No, I mean it's obviously the hope is Bud Dupree is like what Clowney was supposed to be, but Bud Dupree could be what Clowney was. We don't know.
Yeah. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tyler from Berry Hill texted in, "How surprised are you guys that Dupree and Lawson both got paid higher than Matt Judon?" I was pretty surprised.
Well, we've been talking about Lawson, the quote unquote. Yeah,
he's
it's
underrated.
I'm guessing a lot of people know he's pretty good.
Yeah,
but
so he ended up at $15 million, right?
Yeah,
the Jets?
If I would have guessed again, I would have guessed Dupree and Judon right around the same range, and then Lawson a little bit lower. That would have been my guess. So yeah, a little bit surprised for sure. Titans busted out the checkbook for Bud Dupree. So trying to get some information on this last night, and it'll be really interesting to see all that the Titans have done and what these contracts look like too, because. I think the long term, you're going to see obviously that they're geared toward low cap hits here early, clearly.
Yeah.
But one source jokingly said that they found a money tree. So,
oh, good.
Yes, the Titans have found the money tree. But every team has the money tree, which is if you have good people. Vin Marino working the cap for the Titans. You figure a bunch of things out. The cap is overrated.
It is.
It exists, but it's overrated.
It is, and we found that out firsthand yesterday, both here in Nashville and around the NFL as well. So we are off and running here on the program today, and we are taking your thoughts all show long on the moves the Titans have made and the moves that they did not make, which we'll get to a little bit more coming up here in the next segment. Give us your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 1025, The Game. How'd you like to watch the Preds game in style? Make sure you're tuning in later on in the show as we reveal a keyword for you to text into the game line at 615-737-1025 for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Homegate. It's your chance to watch a weekend Preds game with a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. You must be 21 or older to enter, and we'll have that opportunity coming up for you a little bit later here in the show. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rexroad here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning, taking your reaction all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, to the moves the Titans have made in free agency. What are your thoughts on the signings of Bud Dupree and Danico Autry and Kendall Lamb, and also, Joe, the departures of Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis? Now, we knew that this could be the case, and we've talked about it for the last few weeks. And as the show was coming to a close yesterday, we saw a report from Diana Rossini from ESPN that basically said Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis were aware that the Titans were not going to bring them back and were going to reach free agency. Not too long after that, some news started to come out. First, with Jonnu Smith, it came out he had a 4-year deal worth $50 million with the New England Patriots that includes $31.25 million fully guaranteed. So some big money for Jonnu Smith. And then a little bit later on in the day, Corey Davis agrees to a deal with the New York Jets, a 3-year, $37.5 million contract that includes $27 million in guarantees. So a Titans receiver now out the door, a Titans tight end now out the door, and making a whole lot of money while doing so.
Yeah, and with Jonnu in particular, especially like when Bill Belichick decides to pay someone, which I know Bill Belichick kind of has to do things differently now.
He does.
But still, my first thought is, Bill Belichick does not do this a lot. So he probably noticed what was actually obvious to most people around here, that Jonnu Smith is a special talent. Man, it's just a big number, though. I mean, they're both losses. But the Jonnu Smith one in particular, that leaves a hole. That, to me, is the hole now, on offense. And not that receiver isn't, but I think you can find a two. You can find depth. You can sign some people. I think, again, we've talked about it. You're going to draft somebody. Tight end, though, is a real concern, I think. And in this offense, it's very important. So that one could end up, like I could see Jonnu Smith in the years to come having big years.
Yeah.
And that's a big number, but still justifying that salary. And Titans fans looking at him, with water in their eyes a little bit. But again, go back to the number. It is a big number. I mean, I thought, can you get Jonnu Smith for 8, 9, 10, something like that? So he gets 31.25 guaranteed. Yeah, I guess. Look, if he's great and like Bud Dupree isn't, we're going to always compare these moves, but that's just a big number. And that's the problem when someone gets to free agency.
Well, it goes back to, we had some talk as the tags were coming up. Do you give Jonnu Smith the transition tag at $8 million? And obviously the Titans didn't decide to do that, but it just looks like even if they would have decided to do that,
right,
other teams would have been calling on Jonnu Smith. That's for sure.
They would have had the ability to match,
right,
but would they have? I mean, I guess not. So yeah, unless you wanted to go absolute franchise tag, and you could have for like 10 something.
Right.
And look, we'll see. I mean, if this year, if they really struggle at tight end, and we still are waiting on Michael Pruitt and Anthony Ferkser, and who else they might bring in, but if that's a real problem, that could really impact the offense. And you could say, you know what, you should have tagged Jonnu Smith. I think that's fair. But again, it's interesting. It's just basically you are going with your core group on offense and hoping you can stay close to the same. And obviously you're trying to fix the defense. And I get the approach. It's just about the choices now.
So what does this move for the Patriots do for their offense and for Bill Belichick and company trying to get back into a place of contention in the AFC? Mike Giardi from the NFL Network talked about what this does for the New England Patriots and the decision to bring in Jonnu Smith. Here's what Mike Giardi had to say.
That Cam Newton, if he is indeed the quarterback for the Patriots next year, might have a nice new target out there in Jonnu Smith at tight end. What can you tell us?
Well, Jonnu Smith is going to get the second most money in free agency the Patriots have ever spent on a single player, behind only Stephon Gilmore from 2017. Wow. Expected to be around $31 million guaranteed. But this was their number one pass-catching target. That's wide receiver or tight end. It was Jonnu Smith. They believe this guy has the potential to be a star, and I think you saw signs of that last year. 5 touchdowns in his first 4 games with Tennessee before an ankle injury. He's still got plenty of upside, too. I mean, we're talking about players been in the league for 4 years, but is still growing as a player, becoming that number one tight end. And when you consider the Patriots' lack of weapons last year in the passing game, yes, some of that fell on Cam Newton and some accuracy issues, but some of that was they just didn't have enough there. Jonnu Smith helps me get going in the right direction.
So that was Mike Giardi talking about what Jonnu Smith does for the offense, calling him the number one pass-catching target for the Patriots, whether that's at wide receiver or at tight end, and also says the second most money they've ever spent on a free agent. Pretty impressive. Good day for Jonnu Smith yesterday.
Yep. God, 2 mute issues.
2 mutes today.
I'm sorry. I'm pointing at the camera. I'm looking at the camera. I'm sorry. I owe you, man. I owe you big. Yeah. I tell you what, Bill Belichick knows football.
He does.
I can't believe some takes around here like, oh, look at his number. Like, did you watch this guy play? I think Jonnu Smith, and we'll see how they use him. But if that's how they prioritized him, I imagine they're going to feature him too. And so I think Jonnu Smith may have some huge years ahead with the Patriots. That's the guy. And, again, Corey Davis is a loss too. I mean, no question about it. But Corey Davis to me is a lot more replaceable than Jonnu Smith. There just aren't a lot of Jonnu Smiths in the world, but we'll see.
CD on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says Jonnu is now making about what Derrick Henry is making here with the Titans. I did notice that.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
It's the plight of the running back.
Yeah.
It really, that's what it's about. I mean, for what he is, for as important as he is to this team and as great a player as he is, Derrick Henry should make a lot more money than he makes. But that's the one position that has had deflation over the years while everything else has inflation, massive inflation.
Kinston on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, text in and says, wow, catching 40 balls and 448 yards is going to be so hard to do. Anthony Ferkster is the number one tight end.
Yeah, here we go. All the takes. Look, if you want to go by stats, fine. Go by stats. But understand that this offense very much relies on tight ends who are very good at the line of scrimmage, and Jonnu Smith is, and that's a huge part of your passing game. Anthony Ferkster is not that guy. He's never going to be that guy.
He's not the number one tight end.
Right. He's a really nice pass catcher in passing situations.
And he might have to be your slot receiver this year, depending on what else happens.
I mean, he's a good player. They need to try to sign him. No doubt about it. But it's not – if you're just going to go by stats, then I don't know what to tell you. You got to look deeper than that. Jonnu Smith is perfectly ties together the two things about this offense. Everything needs to look the same. It's outside zone, it's play action, and when you have a tight end like him, an inline tight end who's as good as he is at the point of attack, that makes him deadly as a receiver. Anthony Ferkster's not that guy.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ron texts in and says, let's be honest with ourselves. The reason for this is because we've been using Smith as a blocker more than a pass threat the past year and a half, so why pay him that kind of money when we're not using him the way we need to? I hate it, but I wish him the best. Titans fans need to suck it up and move on. Well,
but to that point, you were using him like you should have until you had to keep him in because Taylor Lewan got hurt. And I know that simplifies things, but it's absolutely what happened. How many times in the last half of the season do we see two-man routes from the Titans?
Yeah.
We saw it a lot.
We talked about it every day here on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Titans had the right plan for using him. I'll go back and look at the numbers again. I mean, he had monster numbers in the first 4 weeks. The Mike Giardi there talks about the 5 touchdowns, but everything was he was all over the place. He was a huge part of the passing game, and then he wasn't. And that's pretty simple. I mean, all of a sudden you have 2 tackles that you need to help at times to keep Ryan Tannehill upright. So, look, that's why Bill Belichick figured that out.
Yes.
He didn't say, those numbers, I don't know. I mean, he saw what he is. And again, the Titans probably still wouldn't have used him to the extent that some offenses would around the league. And we'll see what New England does. If you're going to pay this kind of money in New England, I would think you're going to get your money's worth in the passing game.
Well, New England spent a lot of money yesterday in addition to Jonnu Smith. We'll get to that a little bit later this hour. But if I'm Jonnu Smith, I'm looking around at quarterback and saying, Cam Newton, huh? Okay, we'll see how this goes.
I'm looking at my check and saying, well,
I'm not saying
live with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's over here, just nervous now. I mean, he makes a great deal of money. It's a great decision by Jonnu Smith, but I do wonder if Cam Newton's your quarterback, what's this going to look like on offense?
Yeah, well, I still have my doubts that that's the long-term answer for them, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. They can't get Fitz magic because he's in Washington.
Yeah, he's
now.
in Washington
Sorry.
now, and apparently it's not Jared Stidham. So that was the conversation a year ago. The Patriots feel great about Jared Stidham out there. He's the replacement for Brady. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So we'll continue to talk about that a little bit later on this hour. Right now, getting your reaction on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis being out and ask this question: was sacrificing some offense for defense the right move for the Tennessee Titans? We'll talk about it next. This is Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, taking you through this Tuesday morning here in Nashville, Tennessee, and taking your reaction all show long to the moves the Titans have made in free agency on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And Joe, right now discussing some moves the Titans did not make, and that is Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis out the door. Jonnu Smith ends up in New England. Corey Davis ends up with the New York Jets on a 3-year deal worth $37.5 million and $27 million in guarantees. Are you surprised that the Jets were the destination for Corey Davis? We had heard about the Washington football team and maybe the Ravens being in there too, and maybe the Titans finding a way to keep him somehow. Are you surprised that New York is where Corey Davis ended up?
I'm surprised when anyone voluntarily goes to the Jets.
Me too.
But, I hadn't heard much about the Jets as an option. He's the number one receiver there.
That is for sure.
You know, Sam Darnold, I guess.
I guess so.
Are they sticking with that? Is that the plan? They're going to stick with Sam Darnold for now, maybe?
I guess.
Hey, who knows? Corey Davis may be ahead of the curve here and may all of a sudden be catching passes from Deshaun Watson, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he knows something.
Zach Wilson? Slinging the ball around?
Could be. So, but look, if Corey Davis wanted to be the number one receiver, if that was a priority, then here you go. He's got that opportunity. They badly needed receiving help. They badly need a lot of things.
Yeah. Yes, they do. Well, at least they got Adam Gase out of there, though. Don't have to worry about going to play for Adam Gase.
Yeah, let's take it easy on the Marshall, Michigan Youth Football League alum.
That's right.
Fellow alum.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
You weren't teammates, were you?
No, I'm older than Adam Gase. No. But I do, I remember him as a student helper at Michigan State.
There you go. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. JP from Spring Hill texts in. It says, on the topic of Corey Davis, if we see the Titans taking a wide receiver in the draft, what part of the draft do we see ourselves doing this, and do we have any idea who we'd like to see get picked? Love the show. Thanks, guys. Thank you, JP. I would say this, based on the moves the Titans made yesterday, I think the priorities have shifted a little bit in the draft. I mean, you've got your edge guy now in Bud Dupree. You've got some help on the line as well in Danico Autry. And, yeah, it would not hurt to continue to add to that because I think depth is important in those areas. But right now, I think the two glaring needs that you look at the skill positions would be wide receiver and corner, and now you can toss tight end in there as well with Jonnu Smith being out the door. So I would not be surprised at all if the first-round pick ends up being a wide receiver.
No, nor would I. It's just a matter of – I do think there's going to be a best available approach there. And, look, maybe there is just an edge guy that, that you just love. And that's – I mean – you got Landry right now going into year 4, right? Year 4 for Landry, making about $3 million a year. You are invested in Bud Dupree. There's no doubt about that. But you need depth. You still, you're still talking about undrafted guys, kind of in the reserve there on the edge. And so maybe if there's someone that you absolutely love, you still go that way, and then you get those other positions later. But I would agree with you. I would think it's much more likely now that they would look at, who would that be around there? I mean, do they love like a Rashad Bateman? Could he still be there at 22? A Kadarius Toney from Florida, somebody like that. In the receiver spot. There's some other.
Trade your whole draft to go get Kyle Pitts.
I'm telling you, man. Gosh, I'm telling you. Derrick Henry, move up to get Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is.
He's pretty sensational.
I can't imagine him not being.
And he's gonna be a top 5 pick, right?
Yeah,
at least top 8.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Pro Football Focus mock draft that has the Eagles getting him 8th, but yeah, he's gonna be a high pick. There's no doubt about that. Because, I mean, tight end, after him, who's the next tight end?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know.
There's a steep drop-off.
Yeah. So, but to me, it actually makes the draft a lot more interesting because it widens the scope to me. I think it had to be edge all the way until we knew what they were doing in free agency. You pay for a Bud Dupree, and you still have need there, but you might I look, wide receiver is, to me, really important. You have to get a number 2 receiver.
Yeah. And we got a question earlier on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com asking, like, if you've got guys, one's a receiver and one's a corner, and they graded out roughly the same, which direction do you go in the first round? I would lean receiver. Just based on, you just lost. And think about their wide receiving room right now. You've got A.J. Brown, Cam Batson, and Nick Westbrook-Akina. That's pretty much it. You've got to start to build some depth, and you got to find a guy in the slot too. Like maybe that's where you go with your first-round pick. I don't know, but my conventional wisdom would tell me the first-round receiver would probably be a guy that you could put on the outside, and it could be another guy opposite A.J. Brown. But either way, you've got to address 2 different positions at receiver, at least in the draft, I think.
Yeah, again.
Now, free agency is also not over.
Free agency is not over. So we'll see. I think they're going to address the receiver depth in some way. And then, again, tight end, you got 2 guys I think you need to try to keep. You got J.C. Horn the South Carolina kid, is a popular, first-round projected corner. Greg Newsome from Northwestern is one of those guys too. The receiver situation, it's like you got the super high guys up there, Jamar Chases of the worlds and Devontae Smiths and Jalen Waddles, and then there's a little bit of a gap.
Well, the question becomes after those 3, where does the run on receivers start? Because we've seen this before. Once that run starts, teams sometimes can panic, and they'll trade up to try to get their guy, or they'll take a receiver, and all of a sudden, 3 receivers have been taken off the board in a row, and you're looking around. If you're the Titans, you're like, oh my goodness, is our guy going to make it to 22? Like, that absolutely could happen.
Yeah. Tony. Someone is going to take my guy Rondale Moore out of Purdue, and who knows? He may not be what I think he is, but man, talk about a slot receiver who could be a freak. By the way, did you notice? And I know Glennon got nailed by this, but Schefter did the Titans signed Curtis Samuel, the fake Schefter,
fake Schefter. I did see that.
Got to watch.
I did not fall for it, but I did see it.
Got to watch out for that. But that's the type of player, that I think of in terms of a Rondale Moore. You got Asante Samuel is sort of a Florida State, really good college player. Who could be there. It's Tyson Campbell. I really like Tyson Campbell from Georgia. I'm looking in the second round range. There's a lot of possibilities. And I think you're right. Sometimes you get those runs on receivers, and that's what it felt like in 2017 when they all went way higher than you thought they would, including Corey Davis.
Exactly. So, and maybe the Titans started the run on that one. So,
was he the first receiver pick?
I think so.
That's right.
2017 is a long time ago. I have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure he was the first one taken.
Shaun Wade. There's a lot of corners. And, there's a lot of receivers too, though. Tylan Wallace, TD talked about him the other day. Man, that guy, massive production in college. So, Amari Rodgers.
Yeah.
Is he a third rounder? There's a lot, the draft has to be very, very helpful to the Titans. And there are at those positions, and really at edge too. You get to like Patrick Jones from Pittsburgh and things like that, Joseph Asai from Texas. At those 3 positions, you got a lot. But what I don't see is, the tight end position is – now, granted, Jonnu Smith went in the 3rd round.
Right.
So it's not like you have to go super high to get that guy, but it doesn't seem to be a great tight end draft.
Let's introduce our poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. And today's question is this. Titans fans, of these 3 options, which player would you have preferred to see sign yesterday to their reported contracts? And the options are Bud Dupree, Corey Davis, and Jonnu Smith. Bud Dupree, of course, $16.5 million per year. Corey Davis, roughly $12.3 million per year. And Jonnu Smith, $12.5 per year. 127 votes are in. 68% say Bud Dupree. Very happy with the Titans signing him. 17% say Corey Davis. 15% say Jonnu Smith. So Jonnu Smith bringing up the rear at the $12.5 million price tag.
A little surprising, but you got to embrace the new guy, right? Embrace who's coming in. That's a big number for Bud Dupree.
I thought there would be more votes for Corey Davis, honestly. Because once that number came out, I saw a lot of reaction on Twitter of, oh, well, that wasn't as costly as we all thought it might be in terms of $1 million per year and all that.
Yeah, man. I guess I kind of put the line on him at 10, you know?
Yeah.
That's the way I kind of looked at it, but
some people were reporting 14, 15, maybe even 16 mil a year for Corey Davis.
yeah, Pro Football Focus doesn't realize the salary cap exists. Although they're probably more accurate than, the other side of this, which is like the Titans have no money.
Right.
Well, there you go.
There just wasn't at least for me, there just wasn't the sticker shock for Corey Davis compared to Jonnu and the contract that he signed with the Patriots or even Bud Dupree.
Yeah, the Bud Dupree one was.
Woo! It's a big number.
That's a big old number. But apparently that's what the market was. I still am surprised that Judon did make more than he did. That to me is probably the biggest surprise out of all this. And we'll continue to discuss this on the other side. Taking your thoughts on the Titans and looking around the league to some other big moves made yesterday at the unofficial beginning of free agency as well. We'll do that next. This is Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing NFL free agency and the Tennessee Titans, the moves that have been made so far. Maybe some moves still to come as well. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And speaking of the text line, Joe, let's go there. Dan texts in and says the salary cap is why Smith is no longer here. Pass rush is more important than a tight end. Other than Zach Ertz in Philly, who was a second-round pick, the best tight ends in the league were third to fifth-round picks.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. What was Kittle? Was he a fifth-rounder? Something
I think so,
like that?
yeah.
Kelsey, I think a third-rounder.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. That's how it is right now. Doesn't mean that, it's always going to be that way. I mean,
like Kyle Pitts is going to be a first-round pick. He's probably going to be pretty good.
He's probably going to be all right. Yeah. There's been other, great tight ends. I mean, what was Tony Gonzalez?
Now that I don't remember.
I'm going to find out. By the way, though, Rondale Moore, okay, in this Daniel Jeremiah mock, he's got him going 97th.
Tony Gonzalez was a first-round pick.
So there you go. He's okay.
Yeah.
What was Gates' first-round pick? I don't know that he was. So he might be another example of a guy who exceeded his draft.
Tenio Gates was
I thought he was
an
undrafted
undrafted free agent.
There you go. So, yeah, there you go. And, he was also – he was a heck of a college basketball player, by the way, at Kent State, for people who remember that run to the Elite Eight. But, so he started the, basketball guys try out for tight end, So you've got a variety of ways that tight ends, and it's true that you don't have to go in the first round to get one, but sometimes you've got those guys who are, kind of can't miss. I think Jonnu is, I think he's special, and I think that he is the one guy that a few years from now, Titans fans might be watching him in New England. Whoever's throwing to him, it'd probably be better for him if it's not Cam, but saying, man.
Mac Jones.
What could have been? Oh, imagine the dimes.
If Cam Newton
Perfectly placed.
If
Perfect
Cam Newton
placement.
is Jonnu's quarterback this year, I hope Jonnu Smith can catch with his feet, or he grows, another foot or two,
Ooh.
so that he can adjust to the wide window that Cam Newton is throwing into now.
So Cam Newton is now like the worst quarterback ever. So between you and Cam Newton and you and Mariota, like guys who never should have been in the league ever. Terrible.
Well,
I never said that.
I did make the called shot in October that Cam Newton was done.
Yeah, but didn't you say this is?
He said he would never start again.
Yeah.
He started the next week.
Yeah, I know. You're close though. No, well,
Apparently he's going to start all next year too.
Cam Newton's awful.
Cam Newton is he was not great this year. He's not very good anymore. He's banged up. He's to me, he's got to be considered like the stopgap, right? For Belichick at this point.
You would think.
Unless I'm just missing. I'm not going to lie and say I'd watched a ton of Patriots football this year. I do remember week one.
It wasn't much fun to watch.
I do remember week one when Brady threw the pick six and they lost in New Orleans, and then Cam was great, and everybody's like, oh, no. What have you done, Belichick? And then we saw what happened.
Yeah.
Hey, I say get Brian Hoyer, my buddy Brian Hoyer, back in there. He'll give Jonnu some targets.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texts in and says, J-Rob likes to get players coming off of injuries. Clowney, Simmons, and now Dupree. Clowney and Simmons clearly weren't 100% in their first years after injury. Dupree likely won't be either. This is wasting our prime of Henry and Tannehill.
Okay. Well, if Bud Dupree's, not ready and doesn't play much this year, then I guess it's a year that you wasted. This is a longer-term investment than that. But it's an interesting point, Clowney, a little bit different. It was kind of a hip thing, but then it turns out to be the knee here, but it had been the knee before. I mean, I think with Clowney,
he was coming off core surgery too, wasn't he?
He was coming off, yeah, and so with Clowney, I think you had certainly some variety of things and a little bit more of a red flag there. Dupree, it's one, as far as I know, it's one serious injury.
Yep.
It's an ACL, like you said earlier on the show. These things get fixed, and usually a player can come back 100% now, especially with the medical treatment these guys get. with Simmons, that's why they were able to get him where they got him. I mean, I think Jeffrey Simmons
He'd have been a higher pick.
Right. So that one, has worked out. Clowney obviously didn't. If Bud Dupree takes a little bit this year, but he still makes an impact this year, then it's not just a 1-year investment here. This is the edge guy for this team for the foreseeable future. Now, and I'm trying to think too, like when's the last time the Titans? And I know the money's not going to be the same. I mean, anybody who's like, well, this is the most money since whenever. Well, yeah, I mean, 5 years ago, it's not close to the money, and 5 years from now, it'll be way more than this.
Right.
But when's the last time they made this, like a big investment in a pass rusher? I guess a Rakpo, kinda. I don't know what his deal was, but that was, he was good in Washington.
Yeah.
There were injury questions with Arakpo before he signed with the Titans, and then he came here, and
he was
really
hurt here some.
Yeah. Well, some, but not nearly enough as he was in Washington.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the NFL. Like, show me the players out there that don't have some sort of injury history that are old enough to make it to free agency. Like, there's not a ton. Like, Jonnu Smith doesn't have like this laundry list of injuries, but he's been banged up before. So it's not like there's just like this overwhelming options out there of guys that are just injury free in the NFL. It's a pretty violent game.
It is, but that's it's one of those things where you got to be able to project. You got to get lucky, but you also have to so Humphreys. You could say again, I like Humphreys. I like the signing. He didn't give you much,
no,
and that was one of those. If it was a signing that ends up looking bad in the end because the injuries were so much. I'm just looking back here on Arakpo. By the way, was that 4-year, 31?
That sounds right.
So
he only missed 3 games in his 4 years.
Is that right?
Pretty good.
Whereas
I guess it was
in Washington,
Morgan who was more hurt. I guess one of those guys. It seemed like
Washington, Arakpo missed a ton of time.
Yeah.
In his few years before Tennessee.
So this is the first real big. Well, I shouldn't say that. Clowney was last year, but the last 2 off seasons they've gone big trying to invest in pass rush.
But this is a multi-year investment. Clowney was like a 1-year.
Take a flyer.
Right.
Yeah. But it was a go for it move.
Right.
I mean, I still look at this as a go for it. The whole thing is a go for it move. As go for it and fix the defense, even at the expense of the offense.
And apparently, like we've talked about the salary cap and what an obstacle that could be this year in free agency. Well, the team that it was not an obstacle to, the New England Patriots, who had a lot of cap space heading into yesterday anyway, but Jonnu Smith signs in New England, Nelson Aguilar signs in New England, Kendrick Bourne, and also Matt Judon as well on a 4-year, $56 million contract. New England making some moves yesterday.
I mean, all of a sudden Cam or whoever has a lot of the Aguilar deal a little bit big, right?
Yeah.
13 a year?
Yeah.
He got more than Corey Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Kendrick Bourne is one of those guys, and there's some more of those guys out there that I think the Titans have got to, because apparently I'm just assuming they just have all the money you need right now.
I guess so.
And after yesterday, I am ignoring the salary cap, but they need to get some guys like that, like Kendrick Bourne in. But yeah, the Patriots. This is very different. Is this Belichick flexing and saying, okay, I can't let Tommy get a ring? And
well, I don't know, because they're sitting there doing the same stuff down in Tampa Bay, just reloading. Shaq Barrett back on a 4-year, $72 million deal, $36 million which is fully guaranteed. And somehow you hear those numbers, 4 years, $72 million, and his cap hit for next season is less than $6 million.
Yeah. Well,
unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, that's and you know what? We've talked about all these 1-year deals. And here's why you have the multi-year deals, so then you can structure these contracts.
Yeah.
And so I can't wait to see what the Dupree and Autry cap hits of this year. Like 10,000
league minimum cap hit.
Yeah.
Hey,
but at some point, you're kicking the can. At some point, it catches up with you. But hey, the Rams are in cap purgatory, and they just blew it out for Leonard Floyd. So I don't know.
Apparently, the salary cap's a little overrated.
A little bit.
We saw the Chiefs do this last year. Now the Bucs are doing it as well.
But teams do pay. I mean, you're
going to
the Eagles now,
Yeah.
and the Saints now. There are
Yeah.
examples of teams that have done this. even when the cap was in a better situation.
And
then
now
eventually it hits you, and you have to pay the piper.
But you understand it, especially like from Tampa Bay's point of view. You've got Brady. This is your window with Brady. You've got to go for it now. So, yes, 3-4 years down the road, probably not going to be very good because this is going to kick you. But you win another Super Bowl out of it, it's probably worth it.
No question
It's
about
probably
it.
already worth it, but yeah.
Yeah, right. You could probably quit now and be fine. But, yeah, this is your window. Now, who knows with him? I mean, he is potentially immortal, so the window may be bigger than we think.
Good play.
He just signed, what, a 4-year deal?
Yeah.
Sure.
Could play till he's 55.
George Blanda did and was smoking cigarettes on the sideline, so I believe in you, Tom Brady.
Thank you. Lots of belief in Tom Brady here on this program. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Tennessee Titans and ask the question, what is John Robinson's next move? We'll do that next. This is Robbie and Rexroad, live from the Wholesaling Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. Here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robbie and Rexroad here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning here in Nashville, Tennessee. Got a lot to get to today here on the show. Lots of talk about NFL free agency and the Tennessee Titans, the moves that have been made and the moves still to come. Nate Washington, former Titans wide receiver, will join us at 8 o'clock. Chris Mason at 8:30 to get into the latest with the Nashville Predators. A big win yesterday for the Preds down in Tampa Bay. We'll talk to C. Mace about that at 8:30. And then at 9 o'clock, our weekly visit with Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. So a lot still to come here today on the show. And taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. So we've talked about the moves that the Titans have made. Bud Dupree coming in, Danico Autry as well, Kendall Lamb, Jonnu Smith, and Corey Davis on the way out. Corey Davis ends up in New York, Jonnu Smith with the New England Patriots. And the question now becomes, what should the Titans do from here? You've got your pass rusher in. You've got Danico Autry on the line of scrimmage. Bud Dupree on the edge. Brought in a backup offensive tackle as well. What is the next move for John Robinson? And Joe, when I start to think about the next move free agency-wise, I'm looking at wide receiver, maybe bringing in some veteran help, maybe a cheaper route on the wide receiver front of things. That would be, I think, my next target area if I'm John Robinson and the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, along with signing tight ends. You have two.
Pruitt, Ferkser for sure, yeah.
Yeah, Pruitt, Ferkser, trying to lock them up. And, yeah, certainly getting into the wide receiver pool. There's a lot of wide receivers still out there. So we've talked about Marvin Jones. Did Galladay sign with anybody yet? Kenny Galladay?
I don't think so.
Oh,
there's a mute for me.
There you go.
You're up 3-1.
2-1. 3?
Oh, yeah, you got 3.
Oh, yeah, you've got 3.
All right.
Maybe a record for the first hour.
It might be. It's the bright lights in the camera.
Yeah.
That's not my fault. But Kenny
Check us out on
Galladay,
Twitch and YouTube, by the way. Rexler looks very pretty.
I bet.
So do you, Robbie.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm kind of like hidden by this thing, so kind of hidden by the microphone. It makes me feel better.
Twitch and YouTube.
Yeah.
Kenny Galladay. With the Giants, that's a lot of talk with him, right?
Yeah.
Could get some good coaching from Derek Dooley and Jeremy Pruitt.
Coach him up,
turn
baby.
him into an absolute all-pro. But Marvin Jones, I'm going to keep talking about that guy until someone other than the Titans signs him, because I just think that he would fit well. But, yeah, I think that's the next thing. They've shored up, got some offensive line depth. We expect to hear about other people signing Jayon Brown and Daquan Jones here soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everywhere else, corner. I mean, it's possible that certainly they could sign a corner too, and that would make sense. And again, there's a big pool of guys out there right now who are victims of this cap situation that you could probably get for low rates. Got to make the money all work. But I think it's really important to get Ferkser first, but I think Ferkser and Pruitt important.
Agreed.
Pruitt's a big part of that run game. He's very good when he's healthy. Now, he's also had his own injury stuff. But seems like you want to keep as much of your identity in that room as possible now after losing Jonnu Smith.
You would think so, and I think those are two guys that are going to be really important for John Robinson, the Titans, to find a way to bring back. Because, I mean, depending on who you get at tight end, whether it's a veteran free agent on the market or you go draft a guy that you feel like maybe could come in and can help you right away. I mean, blocking-wise, Jonnu Smith, and we've talked about how gifted he is as an athlete and how good he is as a pass catcher. But blocking, he was excellent in that area as well. And Anthony Ferkser, probably not quite as gifted as Jonnu Smith is in that area. So you're going to need some help. I mean, I don't know whether or not Jeff Swaim is going to come back. I thought he did a good job blocking as well. But Jeff Swaim is not playing a whole lot of snaps for you when everybody's healthy.
Right. They love to do the 2-3 tight end sets and things like that. So you've had like the Stockers and the Swaims, and you need people like that too. So that would, but you can always. There's a lot of guys like that. There are not a lot of tight ends that I think fit exactly what they want to do. I mean, they just run the ball way more than most people do, and it's important to have someone who really is a big part of both of those aspects of your offense.
Let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. JD texts in and says, I think the Titans made the right choice in signing defensive free agents. However, I feel as if they overpaid for Dupree. Autry may be a nice complimentary piece, but I would have rather seen them spend the money on Yannick Ngakoue. This is J-Rob's third chance to sign him, and he passed. Why do you think that the Titans passed on him? Now, if you missed it, Ngakoue ends up in Las Vegas on a 2-year, $26 million deal.
Yeah, so this makes, 4 teams, and how long for Ngakoue? You're talking
2 years.
Jags, Vikings in a year.
Yeah,
right?
Jags, Vikings, Ravens, Raiders.
Jags, Vikings, Ravens. A year ago, he was with the Jags. He was about to leave the Jags, right?
Yeah.
So 4 teams in a year. That makes me wonder a little bit. I think, but apart from whatever may be part of that, I will say just on the field with Ngakoue, he is not like Dupree and Judon, and this is why I like Judon. But I mean, Dupree, I think fits this bill too. They are better all-around, well-rounded players than Ngakoue. That's the knock on Ngakoue, is he is purely a pass rusher, and he's not a guy who sets the edge very well, and he doesn't do everything. And these guys are more well-rounded, and the Titans need that. I mean, the Titans, that was supposed to be one of the big benefits of Clowney, but I think that's the short answer on Ngakoue. Is he's got that knock as a DPR. Now, again, if you're a DPR and you get 10, 12 sacks, great. Someone asked about the price tag with Dupree. I mean, to me, it's very simple. The guy has 19.5 sacks in the last 2 years.
Yep.
The sack number just went up or down. Other than Clowney. Clowney doesn't need a sack number. He'll still get paid. But for the most part, you get those sacks, you get into double-digit sacks, your price tag goes up, and Judon was not there. So I think that's the short answer on Dupree getting more money than Matthew Judon.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Sandy from Sparta texts in, looking ahead to what John Robinson could do in the draft, and says, trade down or out and hoard some picks. There's plenty of talent to fit our needs in the second and third rounds. What do you think of Sandy's idea there of maybe trading down if you're John Robinson and the Titans?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree if there's not someone at 22 that you just absolutely love, sure. I mean, I agree. There's a lot of corner and receiver talent in this draft, and there's a lot of edge talent too. And a lot of edge guys projected in the third, fourth round who I think certainly could come in here and help the Titans. But then again, you could just trade up and get Jalen Waddle, okay?
Could do that.
Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts. How about bundle some picks and move up? Bundle some picks in a veteran and move up. You could go either way.
Ty on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, asks, where's Jamar Chase going in the first round? Probably top 5, top 10 at least.
Is he asking team?
Well, I think he's,
yeah.
I don't know specifically with team. I think more area of the draft.
I mean, I know some people think he's going to be the first receiver, which tells you that opting out. Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at Jeremiah, who I think this is actually Chad Reuter from NFL.com. I mean, he's got him going third to the Dolphins. So
Overall.
a lot of people project Jamar Chase as the top receiver, even though those 2 Alabama guys are so good and were so great this past year. And, of course, Jamar Chase opted out. So it didn't hurt him to opt out. Well, we should wait until the actual draft happens, but it doesn't project to hurt him.
It does not at all project to hurt Jamar Chase. And I think based on what we saw and the connection he had with Joe Burrow a couple years ago, pretty special, Jamar Chase. So I would expect him to go probably somewhere, if not in the top 5, somewhere in the top 10 at the receiver position.
I mean, so this guy, Chad Reuter here, has Jalen Waddle going 15th to Washington.
He's still there at 15.
spots.
Trade up, man.
Man, Jalen Waddle. Imagine
I know he
Jalen
just
Waddle
got
on
hurt,
this team.
But, man.
No, he's
It'd be fine.
That seems way low to me. But who knows? I mean, in fact, one spot below the great Mac Jones.
Oh, man.
Going to the Saints.
Yes. Oh, Drew Brees replacement, huh?
Yeah. How about
So move
that?
over, Jameis. Mac Jones coming in.
Yeah. Sorry, Taysom. So what did Jameis sign? 1 year, $12 million?
$12 million.
Yeah.
So I guess he's going to be the starter. I don't know. There's
Well,
competition at camp.
Yeah, he'll beat out Taysom Hill.
You think?
He won't beat out Taysom Hill to be a gunner on the punt team.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure
Sean
Jameis is going to beat
Payton
out Taysom Hill?
loves
Yes.
him some Taysom Hill.
Yes.
He loves him.
Well, I mean, Taysom Hill's a great fullback.
I'm saying he loves him as quarterback.
He won a lot of games filling in for
Yeah,
Breeze
he did.
last year.
Come on.
Yeah. I mean, look, I understand Jameis Winston had all the picks last season he played. That's a problem.
LASIK surgery.
He is better than Taysom Hill.
Had LASIK surgery.
Period.
James is going to go
We haven't really seen
slinging around.
We have not seen the benefits of the LASIK surgery yet.
When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Titans and talk about the new look defensive front that they've got. How big of a difference could this make for the Titans as they move forward here? We'll discuss it next and take your thoughts as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. But right now, got to tell you about my friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, and there's always that one team that ruins your bracket this time of year, and that's why this year I'm betting the tournament on FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, because on FanDuel, your first bet is risk-free, and it doesn't matter if you're betting on a favorite or an underdog. New users get up to $1,000 in site credit back if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel has odds on all the action with games day and night. It's an easy-to-use app, multiple deposits and fast withdrawals, and always on promotions. Your next chance to win with FanDuel is only minutes away. And if that's not enough, FanDuel wants to make you a millionaire. Yes, you. They're giving away $1 million to one lucky bettor, and new and existing users get an additional shot at the payout every day when you bet on the tourney. So if you want a shot at becoming a millionaire or even a thousandaire, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and just use promo code ROB so they know that I sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code ROB. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. No purchase necessary. Restrictions apply for $1 million drawing. Risk-free offer for first-time online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires 14 days after receipt. Terms apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. And for problem gambling support, call 1-800-889-9789. .102.5 The Game is kicking off every weekend with free beer.
Free beer!
And who doesn't love free beer? Just like our good friend Ryan Porth in there. Make sure you're tuning in all day on Friday for your chance to win a $25 gift card from Bavarian Beer House located at Opry Mills Mall. Another thrilling trivia question coming your way on Friday at 9:45 from our very own Ryan Porth.
Free beer.
Free beer.
Good Hall & Oates, too. Props.
Ryan Porth has been rocking it with the trivia questions as of late.
And the poll questions. Doing everything well.
There are way too many compliments going on the other side of the glass.
You're performing at a high level right now, Porth. Way to
Doing
go.
everything well except for, giving me flashbacks to high school when the lights is shining in my eyes and blinding me.
Now, I'm watching this on Twitch right now too, on Twitch and on YouTube today as well, live streaming the show. And man, you look pretty. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. No,
That
I
hair,
imagine I do.
It's flowing.
Yeah. See, I'm okay. This is good audio. Just like making noises as I poke my head out to the camera.
Yes.
What
Talking Titans
an experience.
right now on the program, taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, we talked about it to begin the show. The Titans bringing in Bud Dupree and Danico Autry on the defensive front. Bud Dupree, the edge rusher, Danico Autry on the defensive line. And we talked about the money that goes along with that as well. A heavy investment on the Titans part of things to bring in some help on that side of the ball. As you look at just simply the players that they brought in, not factoring in the money, because that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today as well, but just specifically on the field, how much of an upgrade is this for the Titans? How does this help the Titans bringing in both Bud Dupree and Danico Autry?
Well, we haven't talked much about Danico Autry on the show, but this is my favorite move so far of the Titans. I think Bud Dupree is a bit of a gamble. It's a huge price tag. I really like Danico Autry. You're talking about a guy who is an interior player who also, by the way, a Mississippi State grad. So you got two Mississippi Staters.
Jeffrey
up
Simmons
there.
was very happy about that.
Yes, I saw some tweets to that effect. And this is a guy who came in the league, by the way, as undrafted, free agent himself. 2014 was really good with the Raiders. And, so with the Colts, in 3 years with the Colts, an interior presence, also a guy who, let me see if I can do the math, had 20 sacks in the past 3 years, 7.5 last year. So he gets to the quarterback, from the interior, and that's big. I mean, I think another guy that people have to worry about, and again, this is kind of what, not exactly the same player as Joel Casey, but it's kind of what I thought might happen with Casey and Simmons last year, and I think we saw some of it even at the end in the playoff run of 2019 with Casey and Simmons together. There's another guy who can make a quick move and get to the quarterback and that you have to account for, and I really like that addition. I've been talking about like Ndamukong Suh or somebody like that in there, somebody who just can give you, I mean, like Daquan Jones has been a solid player, but more activity, more agility, and I think that's what you have with Autry, and I think that could be a really big step toward making this defense better.
Darius Leonard, his former teammate with the Indianapolis Colts, very complimentary of Danico Autry on Twitter last night, says, Tennessee got a complete dog, man. I'm going to miss seeing you disrupt everything in front of you, rooting for you even while you're wearing a different shade of blue. So some high praise thrown Danico Autry's way from Darius Leonard, who is quite a good player in his own right.
Yes, he is. And obviously the Colts, it's well documented. Like the signing of DeForest Buckner for them last year made everyone better and made their defense better. And when he played, they were much better. And when he didn't, they weren't. So it's interesting to me that, that they have cap space.
Yeah.
But to me, I guess you can read it like, look, Buckner is the guy for them, and Autry is a little bit more expendable now, so they didn't want to pay him this kind of money. But I guess if you're the Titans, you like the idea of taking a Colt and bringing him in and flipping it around for what should be the two teams that are contending for this division.
Well, and it's also, to me, and you've talked about this a lot, Danico Autry, the player they're getting, I think is a really good player. Now, he is 30. He will be 31 years old when next season begins. So I think there's some natural concern there that maybe the best days of production, or if not behind him, he's at least in the last days of the best days of his production. But even so, I still think he's going to be a really good player for this defense. I'm just fascinated to see now with him next to Jeffrey Simmons, what does that do for Jeffrey Simmons? Like what is the next step that Jeffrey Simmons can now take with Danico Autry on the other side of him and with Bud Dupree on the edge, because we talked about it last year. I thought Jeffrey Simmons, when he was healthy towards the beginning of the season, was really good, was disruptive. Still, I think more to be desired there in terms of actually rushing the passer and getting after the quarterback, but made some big plays for a Titans defense that didn't have a whole lot of big plays that were made last year. I thought he fell off a little bit towards the end of the season. I think injuries had something to do with that as well. But if he's healthy and he's got now Danico Autry and Bud Dupree on that defense with him, you need to see, I think, a pretty gigantic step taken next year from Jeffrey Simmons as well.
Yeah, this defense doesn't improve a lot like they hope it does unless he's really good next year. Healthy and really good. So there's no doubt. Again, you draft someone in the first round and you expect not just instant help, which he gave right as soon as he got off his injury as a rookie, but you expect him to be a difference maker, and I think he's got that in him. They need more help, though, too, up front. I mean, you got Larrell Murchison coming back for his second year. Jack Crawford's a free agent. I mean, again, we don't expect Daquan Jones to be back here. I think he'll be somewhere else. He has been a very solid player. I mean, they still need to either sign someone or draft someone, I think, up front on top of this as well. But this is, Autry and Simmons – It's enticing, and I think it could really change how the whole defense looks if it goes like the Titans hope. I mean, I like Autry a lot as a player. And like you said, he's 30. He turns 31 in July. But he's been pretty, again, not if you want to go by, sacks/pressuring, 9 sacks and 18 with 11 QB hits, 3.5 sacks with 11 QB hits, and then last year 7.5 sacks, 10 QB hits. It's a guy who makes some big plays and occupies blockers and should help Simmons.
Ryan Porth, as you look at the moves the Titans made defensively yesterday with Danico Autry and with Bud Dupree coming into the fold as well. Obviously, Bud Dupree gets the big money, and that's going to be the name that most people are talking about today. Who excites you more, Danico Autry or Bud Dupree? I know you had some worries about Bud Dupree as well.
Danico Autry, because you put him on the D-line with Jeffrey Simmons. I think those two can be a force if they're both fully healthy and at the top of their games. Bud Dupree, I have been asking for years for them to invest in a pass rusher, and I'm glad to see that. I just have a question of whether Bud Dupree is the right one. And at the end of the day, I guess beggars can't be choosers. But I am worried that Bud Dupree is going to be an equal level of disappointment as You, Me, and Dupree, the movie.
Wow.
So.
Oh, man. How would you know? You didn't watch that movie.
I've watched that. That was a $2, Best Buy bin buy, and I watched it once or twice and was not a fan.
Once or twice? Yeah. Watch it again?
Of the 17 movies that Ryan Porth has seen in his life, You, Me, and Dupree, one of them.
You haven't seen, like, the
Star Wars.
Yeah, some of the greatest movies ever made, but you've watched You, Me, and Dupree. Good to know.
Hopefully Bud Dupree works out better than that. I agree with you. Disappointing movie.
I never saw that movie.
You're not missing much.
I had high expectations.
Is that like Owen Wilson?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Kate Hudson.
Yeah. Gotta know what you're walking into in that situation with Owen Wilson. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Tennessee Titans and get a little bit heavier into the Bud Dupree topic. Did the Titans make the right choice in their edge rusher? We'll discuss that next and take your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robbie and Rex Road, streaming live today on Twitch and on YouTube as well here on ESPN 1025 The Game. When the Preds have a weekday game this season, it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. If you guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game that night, you will win a prize pack. The next chance to participate is Thursday morning at 8:45. So looking forward to that coming up on Thursday morning. I'm giving up on trying to get on the board at this point in Preds Pick to Click. So maybe that's what it takes.
I'm trying to distract you with my mugging
It's not
through
working.
the camera. It's not working.
Just kind of power through it.
Way to be a pro.
That's what I do here. Streaming live today on Twitch and on YouTube. I've just tweeted out at @RStanleyNHL the link. So if you want to not only listen to us here on this fine program, but also want to watch us, you can now do that.
And who wouldn't want to, really? Yeah.
This is really a chance, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, like when Roman Josi got boarded into the wall there in Dallas and was bleeding all over the place. Like, you don't touch Roman Josi's beautiful face. And now people have an opportunity to illustrate what you were talking about and really comparing yourself and your beauty to Roman Josi as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I could be in the boy band with Roman Josi.
I think so too.
I might be like the cowbell guy, in the back, like the shirtless cowbell guy. Yes. As Josi is up there, the front man. But I could be in the band.
That's the only thing that matters. You don't have to be the lead singer, just in the band.
And I got a fever.
And the only prescription, more cowbell.
I'm impressed.
Thank you.
I'm impressed.
I only know that because they play that at the Sounds games all the time.
That's the only reason you know that?
Yeah.
You've never seen that clip?
Well, that was the first way I found out about that.
All right.
Christopher Walken, Will Ferrell. Christopher Walken was in a lot of movies you probably haven't seen. Yeah. But you've seen You, Me, and Dupree.
Wedding Crashers.
He loves Wedding Crashers.
So if Owen Wilson's in a movie, you'll watch it.
Yes.
That's what we discovered here on the show.
And unfortunately, the bar for Owen Wilson movies for me is Wedding Crashers, and that is a very high bar.
Aren't they supposed to be coming out with a second one? Like, isn't a Wedding Crashers 2 coming out? I'm not making this up.
Yeah,
I think that's a real thing.
I think that is a real thing.
Oh, boy.
Have you seen Royal Tenenbaums?
No.
Yeah. The great movie he's in you haven't seen. Perfect.
Wedding Crashers is my jam, Joe.
No, that's his favorite movie ever.
That's an all right one.
If Wedding Crashers 2 comes out, would you be pumped up to go see it? Or
I'll
you nervous?
watch it. I would probably be nervous because you can't live up to the first one.
Speaking of, have you seen Coming to America yet?
Yeah, that's what it just made me think of. I haven't yet.
Okay. There are people on the text line that want an update at some point, so you've got to do it sometime in the near future.
Yeah. Well, I'm without family this week. They've all left me to go to Michigan. So, because who doesn't go to Michigan for spring break?
Yeah.
I won't watch it this week, but I will soon. Got to watch it with them.
Okay, that makes sense. We'll continue to get an update on Joe Rexroad as that transpires.
I'm nervous. You
should be.
But all I've heard is it's pretty good, and that's fine as long as it's not
total disaster.
Yeah. Then we're fine.
Talking Titans right now here on the program, taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And talking about specifically right now the signing of Bud Dupree. And Bud Dupree comes on here, and we've been talking about investing in an edge rusher. And Joe Rexroad, the question I have for you is, did the Titans invest in the right edge rusher? Now, we saw yesterday Matthew Judon ends up in New England. Kyle Larson ends up with the New York Jets, now teammates with Corey Davis. And Bud Dupree here in Nashville with the Titans. So of the options that were out there and that were available, obviously no Shaq Barrett on that list. He's back in Tampa Bay. Did the Titans make the right decision with Bud Dupree coming into the fold based on his production that he's had and also the injury that he sustained last year as well?
Well, I think Bud Dupree was always one of those guys up there. That was not my choice. I like Judon. I never, I think we both talked about Shaq Barrett. I mean, they were going to keep him. They kept him. I certainly, if I ranked them, I would have gone Judon. I don't know if then it's close after that. Like Lawson, Dupree. Dupree has had more production, and he also has the injury. He's had more production, and he's had more help. I mean, listen, as soon as – and I've watched more of this since they signed him than before. You watch film of Bud Dupree, I mean, he is impressive.
It's impressive, yeah. I mean, they were showing it on the NFL Network when we began the show, and when he's on, I mean, he just runs right through people.
Yeah, no, and he's got some counter moves. He's a big, outside speed rusher guy, but he does have some counter moves and some power. We talk about Vrabel likes to use the term, speed to power or power to speed. It's that ability to combine and still be physical and fight through and have a counter move, against a good offensive lineman with good punch. I mean, he's got the skills. How much was he doubled? How much was Watt doubled? I read some stuff on that last night too. And it's not like it was all T.J. Watt being doubled and Bud Dupree having a single blocker. That wasn't the case. But T.J. Watt T.J. Watt's a better player. So if we're just comparing him to like his teammate, you'd rather have T.J. Watt. Doesn't mean Bud Dupree isn't really good.
Right.
So it's a big number. I do think that he is a well-rounded football player, which, again, if we're comparing him to an Ngakoue, I definitely put him ahead of him. And when you compare him to Carl Lawson, he's done things as a pass rusher that Carl Lawson has not done. I mean, he has better pass rushing numbers than any of those guys we're talking about, which, again, I think that's directly tied to the number. I mean, you get the sacks and you get paid more. Unless you're Jadeveon Clowney. You don't need the sacks then.
And you could just get paid no matter what. And you're talking about a 5-year deal worth a maximum of $85 million for Bud Dupree, $35 million, which is guaranteed, $16.5 million per season. So we'll wait to see exactly what the cap hit ends up being for Bud Dupree on this. But, look, if you're a Titans fan, I mean, I get the concerns. That was my immediate reaction last night was, man, that is a big number for Bud Dupree. And he's 28 years old. And he's coming off a torn ACL, and he was playing next to an elite player in the NFL and T.J. Watt on the other side. But I do think, this is a day for an excitement if you're a Titans fan. We've talked about the need to go get a pass rusher that can sack the quarterback and can get after the quarterback. And Bud Dupree, when he's healthy, certainly has proven that he's able to do that. So I think an exciting day for Titans fans. My question is, how exactly are they going to line him up? Because you've made an interesting observation, and I think you're right about this. Like, Bud Dupree has played on the right side on the edge, and that is where Harold Landry has played as well. So what are they going to do there? Obviously, you can't play both of them on that side. Are you going to move Harold Landry over to the other side? Do you move Bud Dupree over to the other side? That's going to be interesting to see how the Titans go about handling that. When it comes to figuring out exactly where to line everybody up. And how much does Bud Dupree help Harold Landry? Like, I think Landry has been a good player for the Titans. He doesn't have the sack numbers that I think some fans would want him to have. He's also not had a ton of help since he's been here in Nashville playing on the edge. What could having a guy like Bud Dupree on the other side do for Harold Landry? I think that's an interesting question as well.
Based on what I've read up on Dupree, he actually lined up on the left side. I mean, again, we're talking first-round pick 15 for the first few years of his career. T.J. Watt, the left side guy, so they flopped him. Yeah, they flipped Dupree over to the right. So I would expect he would probably go to the left here.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know. Is it your choice if you make $16.5 million? Maybe
you want to play right or left, Bud?
What jersey number would you like? But he's done a lot on the left side, and Landry, I believe, has been purely right side here, right? I can't remember Landry. I mean, I'm sure a snap here or there they moved him around, but for the most part, he's been a right side guy. So that'd be my guess is that Dupree would be on left. So, but at least there's a lot of history of him playing that. Now, his best football, his best production has been on the right side. So something to keep in mind.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trevor in Nashville texts in and says, Joe would be the stagehand in the boy band.
I could do that. I mean, that could be a good roadie,
Yeah.
Yeah. Go get pizzas
I'm
for
just
everybody.
glad Trevor keeps you in the band. Bud Dupree be in this band too. Making a lot of money.
Yeah. Bud Dupree. He's a good-looking guy, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Better looking now, making $16.5 million a year.
Better looking than Trevor Lawrence. He's a pro now. Well, he's about to be.
Yeah.
So you don't have to feel bad for attacking a college kid.
Yeah, as soon as he's an actual pro, we can go back to
Kind of ugly, though.
Stop. I was trying to forget that whole thing.
It was one of the great moments. Here on
Yeah,
the show.
it was a great moment in broadcast history.
It really
I
was.
wish that it was on. I wish it was on video.
Yeah.
At the time.
Well, in the future, it can be.
Yeah, that's right. I can look at the camera and talk about other people being ugly.
Yeah, when Trevor Lawrence is the next quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, a lot of Titans fans probably will share in your opinion when that happens.
Yeah.
Lots of hatred about to be doled Trevor Lawrence's way here in Nashville.
Have the Jags done anything, by the way, in free agency? They signed anybody? They got all.
I don't think anybody big.
They got all the cap space in the world.
Well, there's this big.
They signed someone that was weird, right? Who was it?
They signed someone that was weird.
Well, no, the signing was weird, not the person was weird. He might be.
You just hate everybody who's either going to end up in Jacksonville.
Associated with the Jags.
Yeah.
Well, I love their strength program. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
It's an elite strength program.
It's an
in the
amazing.
NFL.
Urban's just finger on the pulse of what matters in the NFL. Now this is going to bother me. We're going to have to go to break for me to figure this out. They signed somebody yesterday, and I said,
Well, there was this big to-do about whether or not Cam Robinson had signed his franchise tender yesterday because I think Joel Corey was talking about it on Twitter. Like, why has he not signed it? And then it came out like 30 minutes later that he actually had signed it. So, congratulations, Cam Robinson.
Yeah, that's cool, but that's not what I'm thinking of.
Rayshon Jenkins. I think that's it.
Really? That's all they signed yesterday?
Yeah, signed Rayshon Jenkins, safety, 4-year deal.
This is a mystery.
Philip
I'll
Dorsett,
figure this
wide
out.
receiver.
Maybe that was it.
Carlos Hyde.
No, yeah, that's it. Thank
Carlos
you.
Hyde?
Yeah,
Okay.
Carlos Hyde.
All right.
He's weird.
Did I just say that? Like that?
No, you said they signed someone who's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not weird. I think the signing is weird. You know, I mean, I guess you got to have people. I don't know. The
Yeah,
Jaguars.
backup running back.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. It's just when they. Whatever. I'm weird. Okay. Let's just go to break.
All right, when we come back,
I'm just gonna look at the camera.
we'll continue the discussion. Continue to get your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Nate Washington, former Titans wide receiver, coming up at 8 o'clock to continue the conversation on the Titans. And when we come back, we'll dive into the West region of the NCAA tournament coming up here this week. Joe Rexrode, very excited to look ahead to this tournament. We'll have that preview for you next. This is Robbie and Rexrode. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking a small break from the Titans, discussing the NCAA tournament right now, coming up later this week. And today, diving into the West region of the NCAA tournament. Gonzaga, the number 1 seed in the West region. Iowa at number 2, taking on the mighty Grand Canyon University. Looking forward to that one.
Bryce Drew.
Yeah, man.
Bryce Drew is in the NCAA tournament.
How do you think that makes Vanderbilt fans feel?
Yeah, a lot of people have said stuff about that. I guess to me, we already knew Bryce Drew can get to the NCAA tournament. He did so at Valparaiso, I think, at least a couple times. He had a very good record there. So I don't know. Bryce Drew proved himself to a certain point before he got here. It's good for him to go there and get them there. The WAC's not great, but still, I mean, that's a good achievement. I don't know that Vanderbilt fans. I mean, it doesn't change like that he went 0-18.
No.
I think in 3 years with him, and I certainly don't think that giving him a 4th year would have been like some huge crime. Like I never thought back then that it was. In fact, I didn't think he was going to get fired. I never thought back then that it was like you have to fire him because he went winless, but you could justify it. Because it wasn't just that year. The year before there, it was a real downturn. And, the only real good basketball Vanderbilt played in his 3 years was the end of his first year when Luke Cornett kind of went nuts. So it was, if Bryce Drew goes from there and then gets another job from there and wins at that Power 5 job down the road, then maybe you can look back. But the up-close view here was, man, I don't know.
Great.
It wasn't great. It just – He didn't have a way to deal with that well. So, but if Stackhouse doesn't win and he doesn't turn it around pretty significantly next year, then more and more Vanderbilt fans will feel bad about everything.
Yes, they will.
Sorry, not baseball. Vanderbilt baseball beat Oklahoma State 2 out of 3 over the weekend. By the way,
pretty good.
Kumar Rocker, Jack Ladder, yeah,
might have a future in these.
They might be all right. Number 2 in the country.
That's right. Gonzaga, the number 1 seed in the West region here in the tournament, taking their spotless 26-0 record into the tournament. Joe Rexrode, you are convinced that they have blown an opportunity and should have lost somewhere in the regular season, but now trying to become the first team, I believe, since 79. Is that correct? Or is it 76?
Yep, Indiana 1976.
76 to go undefeated in the regular season and undefeated in the tournament and win the national championship as well. And you look at this side of the bracket, Iowa, the 2 seed, Kansas, the 3 seed, Virginia, the 4 seed. Obviously, the Kansas, they're not the same Kansas as they typically are. You're typically talking about a 1 seed or at the very least a 2 seed in Kansas on a year-by-year basis. But still, the top 4 seeds in this side of the bracket, pretty heavy star power, pretty heavy name brands. And tell you what, Luka Garza and Iowa, those guys can play.
They can. I mean, Gonzaga ran them once already this year. Like, they can't stop Gonzaga. I don't know that anybody can. I think this is a pretty sweet draw for Gonzaga. I will say, though, the second game, if Missouri beats Oklahoma, and it's an 8-9 game, I will say that team, the way they defend with Tillman at the rim, they can really muck up a game.
Yeah.
Missouri, Konzo Martin's team. So I think that one could be interesting. That might honestly be the toughest game on the way there. I've got UVA losing to Ohio. Sorry, John Glennon.
Wow.
The Ohio Bobcats pulling the shocker. I like Iowa a lot.
Is that because you don't want to watch Virginia in the tournament and the way that they play?
Yeah, like it's a wishful pick.
It's a wishful pick?
I don't know, but I might pick Liberty to win their game, and it's over Oklahoma State, and it's the same thing. I'm not, but it's the same kind of. I'm not a big fan. I will admit that of the style, but I think Virginia. I think the ACC has just been kind of bad this year.
Yeah.
But I think that Iowa certainly lots of talent. Kansas, to me, I can't believe they're a 3 seed. Thinking back to what Tennessee did to Kansas, and they also have the COVID issue, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So Kansas has at least a couple guys who aren't going to be there. Did you see, by the way, the officials yesterday?
Yeah.
Did you see this thing? So 6 of their officials
waiting
for their hotel room, don't have it yet, go out to eat, and now they're all out. One's tested positive. They're all out of there. So, yeah. So
not a great start.
No, there's going to be, I'm sure more of that. But, I mean, obviously the bubble has got to hold up here, or else this tournament could really be thrown sideways.
I know the 8-9 matchup, it's really not an upset because you're talking about two pretty evenly matched teams. But Oklahoma and Missouri being the 9 seed, this is an 8-9 matchup where I've got Missouri moving on. I think that's going to be a pretty popular pick in brackets.
Yes, I do too. I also think UCSB, I mean, every region, you look at the 5-12, and, UCSB is good, and Creighton looked just terrible in their last time out against Georgetown. So that's going to be a popular pick. USC is a team that I feel like is headed toward the Sweet 16. So I look at them, possible matchup with Canton. Now, they have got they're waiting on their opponent. It's going to be Wichita or it's going to be Drake, which is interesting too because those are former MVC rivals that are playing the first 4 game. I guess that's about 5:30 our time on Thursday. But I like USC a lot. USC is loaded. That guy has brought in some. That guy's brought in some talent. USC, Enfield, Dunk City guy. So that's one of those teams to watch in the tournament overall. USC. I've been able to watch them a little bit with the beautiful sounds of Bill Walton as an accompaniment, and you've got Mobley is the kid. Evan Mobley is a stud. He's going to be a high pick in the draft. Big man.
CBS Sports has the top potential matchup in the West region of the bracket being Iowa versus Oregon. So getting to the point where it's Iowa and Oregon, what do you think of Oregon and their chances as the 7th seed in this bracket?
Yeah, I have not been able to see a lot of Oregon this year. I know they got stunned by Oregon State in the
they did
in the Pac-12 tournament. Bitter rivalry loss. They've got Will Richardson's a really good player. They're a very good offensive and 3-point shooting team. I mean, they shoot 38% from 3. So, that's a type of thing that can obviously work in March. They got a big body, Eugene Ormarui, who was a Rutgers transfer, 6'6", 235, 17 points a game, 5 assists. Now, the Pac-12, man, that's the problem is, like, they just don't get to see much of it. And like in any of their sports. It's amazing how, like,
Pac-12 after dark.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the irrelevance of that league. But doesn't mean that there's nobody good out of that league. Again, I like USC a lot. I'm kind of just on Oregon. And I think VCU could definitely score the 10-7 mild upset in that game.
Bottom line, I filled out my bracket yesterday. I've got Gonzaga coming out of the West region. Shocker there.
Yeah, I really do think like Missouri could make them sweat. And I guess like if UVA doesn't lose to Ohio, like I think / hope,
just stifle them defensively.
I mean, UVA is, of course, a team. I mean, that would be an attractive matchup for people who want. Because the problem with Gonzaga is they're just impossible to stop. They're not great defensively. They are elite as it comes. I mean, offensively, they got everything you need. Interior, outside shooting, and Jalen Suggs as a freshman is just ridiculous. So UVA could be a tough game for them in the Sweet 16. I just don't know if they'll be there. And USC might be USC Gonzaga. I haven't done the full bracket yet. I got to do it. But I think I might be leaning toward USC beating Iowa. Iowa, they don't play D. They don't play enough D. I'm sorry. Yeah. I like Garza. He's a load. But I don't trust him. I don't trust Fran McCaffrey teams to play defense in this tournament.
And you're going to have to put up a lot of points if you're going to hang with Gonzaga. That's for sure, because I don't care really who you are defensively. They're going to present a challenge. Like Virginia, I think, gives a good chance to maybe try to shut them down and at least slow the pace of the game down.
Yeah.
But they're going to find a way to score.
Right. And then that's part of the formula probably, unfortunately, is to suck the shot clock down to the last 5 seconds every time you have the ball. And Virginia will certainly do that. Tony Bennett likes to do that to everyone trying to watch basketball. I don't think it's enough because that team can play a half-court game too. and get great shots. It's just a special team. I think they're going to lose somewhere along the way, probably in the Final Four, because they blew it and didn't lose.
Coming up next, we'll get back into the Titans. Former Titans wide receiver Nate Washington will join us, and we'll break down the losses for the Titans on offense. How is this going to affect them as they move forward here? We'll do that next. This is Robbie and Rexroad, live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 3 of Robbie and Rexroad here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the Tennessee Titans and the moves made in the unofficial start of free agency yesterday. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in former Titans wide receiver Nate Washington. Nate, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Fellas, how y'all doing? Good morning, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for taking time to join us, Nate. And I want to start with the losses for the Titans yesterday. You lose Corey Davis to the New York Jets, lose Jonnu Smith on a 4-year, $50 million contract to the New England Patriots. What was your reaction when you saw that Davis and Jonnu Smith were going elsewhere? And what do you think about those deals that those two landed?
Well, you know, from the start when they didn't get the franchise tag, I knew it was something, brewing about, free agency and them possibly leaving. Those are just huge signs for guys like that are assets to your team that they don't franchise, in my opinion. And, it's one of those situations, obviously, where there's a major change in the salary cap. I think the Titans kind of understood that, franchise tag was going to be difficult to just carry one. And they made a decision not to carry any. So with that being said, seeing those guys leave and go get the paydays that they've gotten and the new positions and the new organizations that they'll be a part of, it was well deserved. I think Corey's on his way to becoming a solid, reliable asset for a team, and the Jets obviously need a huge, major help at receiver right now. And, New England has been struggling with weapons as well. It's something that's been widely recognized with that team in comparison to when Tom has left and how things have went last year. And it's just been a huge, I think you can say, a huge problem with them the last couple of years of not having the tools or the assets on that New England Patriots team to to compete the way that they want to. So to see Jonnu get the payday he's gotten with those guys in New England is obviously just a testament to them needing assets to, help Cam Newton out, and Jonnu being one of those assets, that they believe in.
So, Nate, obviously the Titans here, like you said, those guys, the cap reality was what it was. John Robinson went out and invested a lot of money in trying to fix the defense. Do you think that they should have tried to keep at least one of those guys to keep going what they have offensively?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting because obviously with Art being gone, I think, you have the structure of what type of offense that you want to have, but obviously there's going to be a different caller in place. So we're going to be seeing actually a totally different style of offense, even if it's the same guys, with a totally different mind. You have totally different play calls in different situations. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the whole offense looks in itself. We understand that Derrick Henry is one of the best backs in the game, and I think they'll have to continue to ride him into the promised land. But obviously with Derrick being their number one asset, I think, there's going to be a major room for play action still, So it's going to be interesting because AJ is not going to be the same AJ without Jonnu and Corey. It's a help league. I think he's an outstanding receiver, but, now being the only guy that I think can, hurt a team in the pass game, I think a lot of teams will understand that and come out and do whatever they have to structure and strategize to stop AJ. So with that being said, there's going to have to be some places, that the Titans going to have to address here in this offseason, maybe through the draft, maybe still through some diamonds in the rough in the free agency. But, there's still going to be some offensive positions that they're going to have to address, trying to help this offense move forward and be successful as they have been in the past.
Former Titans wide receiver Nate Washington on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And, Nate, you brought up the draft there, and we've had a lot of people on our text line today talk about how the Titans need to go out and draft some receiver help now. I'm interested from your vantage point, being a former receiver in the league, how do you view college receivers coming into the NFL now in terms of their readiness to come in and contribute right away? It seems like from our view that more and more receivers are ready to contribute right away coming in from college in the NFL nowadays.
Definitely. I think the opportunity has just changed in itself. A lot of times when you get young guys into the league previously, I'll say throughout my tenure in the league, you get a lot of young guys come in, and you're expecting them, even some guys that you get in the first round and you're expecting to start, the opportunities are slim to none. Becoming one of those splash breakout guys, even with OBJ when he was a young guy, had the big catch on Monday Night Football, Dallas Cowboy game, but had a great splash name for itself, but it was a struggle to try to get him into that offense afterwards just because of him being a young guy. But then you turn around and you look at a Justin Jefferson and what he was able to do last year with the Minnesota Vikings. It's just a true testament that these guys are prepared to play today, in the NFL now coming out of college. And it's going to be interesting. You have some major names on the table. some guys that sat out last year. I'm going to be interested to see what the kid Chase does from LSU, being he sat out a whole year. But I think you have some interesting names on the table that may be able to come in and help the Titans immediately if it's approached right. You know, obviously the Titans are in a different position in the draft, drafting later in the first round. They have the back end of those picks and those type of things. But once you get into the second round, I think they'll give themselves a little bit more opportunity to get in the mix of those top-tier guys and that middle to late round to try to get some assets that can help this team out at that receiver position.
So, Nate, what do you think about Bud Dupree and Danico Autry, both as players and then also the price tags involved here?
Interesting price tags, you know, especially with Bud coming off of the injury. But obviously the help that they needed. You know, I think looking at this offseason, you know, me personally and addressing it personally with my personal opinion, you know, I was worried, you know, seeing that they needed help at pass rush, you know, obviously needed help at secondary, letting Malcolm Butler go, still needing help offensively, you know, with receivers and tight end help. And those all being, you know, major issues, in my opinion, that the Titans were going to have to address here in this offseason. And, you know, you can't address everything in the draft. You cannot address everything in the draft. And with that being said, you know, looking at the first day go by and not, you know, almost the whole first day go by and not seeing much transitions action from the Titans, you know, and knowing that those were some major areas of concern, you know, and not seeing any movement on it, you know, to see what they did later on in the day, making those two accusations, I think they at least took one of those concerns off the table. You know, now you can take at least pass rush off the table and say, you know, well, at least we're more comfortable with the guys that we're bringing in and them approaching, you know, having the approach that they have and what they're able to bring to the pass rush. You know, now so you can just really look at the secondary and this receiver help that they need to bring someone in and have somebody, you know, on the other side of AJ be more accountable and actually help him out to keep the coverage off of him. You know, now those two things I think that they can address early in the draft. I think they can bring in some young guys, as you stated in your previous question, that'll be ready and willing to play immediately. And still have that pass rush be solidified with what they brought in through free agency. You know, I know Bud Dupree. I don't know him personally, but I definitely know the organization that he's coming from. Obviously, I know the characteristic, the personality that those type of guys carry. And, you know, there's concern, obviously, with the injury that he's coming off of, but one thing I know, and two things for sure, is that Bud is going to be ready to play football. It means something to him. I think the Titans organization in itself has, you know, especially last year, experienced some guys in the locker room that maybe necessarily didn't want to give their all anymore. You know, unfortunately, what happened with Vic Beasley in the beginning of the season. Then you turn around and you have what happens with Isaiah Wilson in the draft pick that you made last year. And obviously, you know, you get talented guys in the NFL, but the wherewithal and the want-to still has to be made up in their mind. But, you know, I think Bud has that want-to come in, bounce back from the injury, and be an impact that he know he can be in that pass rush game.
Former Titans wide receiver Nate Washington on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Nate, last thing for you here. We've talked a lot today about getting somebody on the other side of A.J. Brown to have a 1-2 punch if you're the Titans. But how important is getting somebody in the slot? The Titans have not had that consistently over the last couple of years just based on Adam Humphries and the injuries that he sustained. How important is that for the Titans? How big of a weapon could that be if the Titans get a player that could come in and be a big factor in the slot?
Well, I'll even go a step further and say, especially with losing Jonnu, you have no interior of the field. It'll be different if you had a tight end that you can rely on that was a major asset in the middle of the field. But, you know, especially when you think about play-action offenses, a lot of times those big plays comes from your interior part of the field, whether it's going to be a slot guy or a tight end. You know, major shots on the outside for the receivers on the outside, big plays for them to make. But, you know, when you're talking about everyday structure of a play-action offense, in my opinion, you have to have somebody to be able to work the interior of the field So, losing Jonnu and not having a major tight end, you're definitely going to have to address that slot position. Adam didn't pan out the way that the Titans were expecting. I'm pretty sure he's a good guy. He does what he can, but obviously due to major injuries and he hasn't been able to produce that asset that, this offense needs at this moment. So now when you address it here looking at this offseason, and even if he still has the potential to play and, the belief from the organization, you're going to have to put somebody in the middle of the field when you address this play-action style offense. Someone is going to have to be accountable. So whether it's finding a tight end that's valuable or addressing this slot position, somebody is going to have to step up and be able to make plays in the interior of the field for this offense to be successful in 2021.
Former Titans wide receiver Nate Washington has been our guest here on Robbie and Rexroad. Nate, great stuff, man. Appreciate you taking time to join us.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. You as well. Former Titans and Steelers wide receiver Nate Washington on the show with us. Always great to get his perspective. And we're going to react to a little bit of what Nate had to say there when we come back about the Titans offense and where they go from here. Also take your thoughts as well on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robbie and Rexroad here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Getting rickrolled here on this Tuesday morning.
Beautiful.
Got rickrolled by you yesterday.
Apparently I sang this song at karaoke in the 90s, and you found the video.
The funny part of that was when I tweeted out this video, there's this app called, I guess, Wombo, and you could take still pictures of people. And I guess with the technology, it makes the face move and it acts like you're singing a song. And I did that with Rex Road yesterday at Arch Stanley NHL on Twitter, by the way. You can find it. It's a great video. But the amount of people in the replies that thought that was actually you singing a song was amazing.
Yeah. Like, I joked, wow. I was like, how'd you get that video? And then someone was like, whoa, no way you would have that video. Like, yeah, I was kidding. It's not
Somebody
a
was
video.
like, so I said, if this is actually you and not a deep fake, you need to go back to Detroit. Like, okay.
Yeah, that's
Like,
right.
it's not really Rex Road singing.
Yeah,
but
people are trying to send me out of here for this. I think it's actually a beautiful video.
I think it is too.
Nice song, you know.
Slightly terrifying.
It's a little bit freaky. It's
great.
weird because the picture, it's kind of like the J.J. Watt picture, the growling, you know, kid who has to wear a starched shirt and go to church, angry at mom picture that J.J. Watt takes for his teams. And it's like this pleasant, somehow they mold your face. Because, I mean, my picture, I'm like just kind of a.
Yeah, they give you a smile.
It's not really a smile.
Yeah.
They got me all like the eyes. They make your eyebrows rise. And it's man, technology. Pretty beautiful. So, yeah, Wombo. It's called the Wombo app.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give it a shot, people. Take some picture and make someone sing a dumb song.
It's been pretty fun. I spent way too much time on it last night. Talking Titans here on the show today. Robbie and Rex Road taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. Streaming live today on Twitch and on YouTube as well. I've got the links on my Twitter account at rstanleyNHL. Joe, some breaking news on the Titans front. This coming from John Glennon of Broadway Sports. The Titans have re-signed tight end Jeff Swaim to a one-year deal. So we talked about the loss of Jonnu Smith and how the Titans have some tight ends still out there in Michael Pruitt and Jeff Swaim and Anthony Ferkser that we would assume they try to bring back into the fold here in Nashville. One of those has been done, according to John Glennon. Jeff Swaim coming back on a one-year deal.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think all three of them, if you can get them, and then get someone to replace Jonnu, even with those three guys. But if you were to lose Michael Pruitt, Jeff Swaim is. You could have them both, but I think at least one of them you want coming back. Glennon also comes with some stats. Swaim played 33% of the team's offensive snaps. That's a surprising number to me.
Yeah,
actually,
started some games.
Yeah, but it shows you, I mean, look, they like the multi-tight end sets. Maybe Todd Downing won't, but he's a tight ends coach turned OC too. So
they have a lot of tight ends.
They like tight ends. They like using them, multiple at once. 34% of special team snaps too. Good stats, Johnny G. Sorry that UVA is going to lose, but you did a good job today on Jeff Swaim.
There you go.
That's a good signing. And I think, the priority is Ferkser. There's a little bit of, I think, over selling what Ferkser is with some fans. Our guy Kenston, who weighs in a lot, he tweeted at me and said, because he's the one who earlier was talking about Jonnu's production. So Kenston, first of all, like Kenston, I totally agreed on Adoree Jackson and kind of argued against you with Malcolm Butler.
And you're both wrong, but that's cool.
Yeah, that's fine. But, I mean, the idea is youth, speed. To me, it's like more matchups that you have a chance in with Adoree. But see, if Kenston, if you believe that, then you can't now watch Jonnu play and say, yeah, but his stats weren't good. I mean, come on. But to that point, Kenston says, I hear you on the tight end situation. Jonnu's talent level is what is going to hurt. Losing more than production, but Delaney Walker was the same type of H-back with the 49ers before he came here to be a traditional tight end. Ferkser is Frank Wycheck 2.0.
It's a high bar.
Ferkser is Frank Wycheck 2.0. That got a little bit of smoke to it.
A little bit of smoke to it. I like it, though.
Ferkser's good. He's a good pass catcher. Frank Wycheck was a all-around
pretty good tight end.
Hell of a tight end.
He sure was. Let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, the Titans need a true slot wide receiver and a field stretcher, a true burner on the outside. Raymond had some of that, but he's not consistent enough, and as we know, Khalif Raymond is now gone and not part of the Titans. So obviously there are some holes that they've got to figure out at the receiver position with Corey Davis now gone to the Jets, Jonnu Smith now gone to the New England Patriots. It's basically in the receiver room, A.J. Brown. That's pretty much it at this point. Cam Batson as well. You'd figured he'd be a part of things as they move forward next year. But we've talked about the importance of getting somebody else on the outside, finding somebody that can operate in the slot. It's going to be crucial for this team. I thought when Adam Humphries was available, and it wasn't as much as you were hoping for if you're a Titans fan, but when he was available, I thought he was productive. I thought he was a safety blanket for Ryan Tannehill. You knew where he was going to be. And honestly, like if he would have remained healthy, I think Adam Humphries is exactly the guy you want in the slot. But we know that's not going to be the case with him now. I think finding somebody else, whether it's in free agency or in the draft, that could come in and help you over the middle of the field, that has got to be high on the priority list now for John Robinson based on the moves he's made yesterday.
Yeah, Humphries is one of those guys, it doesn't matter because it didn't count in games, but like in practices, for example, he would destroy guys. He would destroy. I mean, these DBs would want to line up against him, Butler and those guys, because he was such a tough cover, so hard to press, and his moves off the line were elite. But like you said, I mean, you get hurt that much, you don't produce like he did, you have to move on. You want to find someone who can be something like that in the slot. I'm going to keep saying Rondale Moore's name as a.
You love you some Rondale Moore.
Yeah, I don't know. He's there are knocks against him, certainly his size, and he's been banged up too. But really powerful to go with speed, and the change of direction is something else. But yeah, that's a priority, and a priority is to have a number 2 outside. So it's really the room that really needs the most work right now.
Well, it's obvious at this point the Titans have made the decision to sacrifice some offense to try to fix the defense that was so bad last year. Obviously, with Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith gone, you now have holes on the offensive side of the ball. The question is, and we're not going to know this for sure until we see what else the Titans do and how it plays out on the field, but the question Titans fans have is that the right move? Was it the right move to sacrifice this much offense with Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith not being there to try and fix the defense? Have you taken too much away from a spot where you were absolutely elite in the NFL in order to try to fix a weakness that was glaring? And are you in danger at becoming maybe average on both sides of the ball? That, to me, would be my concern if I'm the Titans.
Yeah. If they get to average on offense from this, that's a big drop. Unexpected drop, probably something that would be blamed on Todd Downing. Frankly, I mean, you still have the offensive line, which I like that because I thought that there might be just some necessary, attrition there. But apparently
now you've added to it.
With
Kendall Lamb coming in,
keeping the band together there, and you have your 3. Now you have your 3 stars, and A.J. Brown is the next guy you're going to pay him. Yeah, and that's another thing you do have to. Even though it's every year, you are also looking down the road, and A.J. Brown is going to be another guy who takes up a big chunk of your cap because he's just too good not to sign unless something really drastic changes next year. But I think you should still be good as long as you can find, you got to make some choices now. And who knows, is the defense even going to get any better from these moves? That's another
a good question.
Thing. I mean, you've spent a lot of money to make that happen. You spent money last year. Last year, you spent $21.75 million for basically nothing. And now this year, what is this year's number? I mean, the number that matters is the $44 million guaranteed for those 2 guys. But,
right.
But as far as next year, I guess you're talking about 23, right? 23-ish on 2 guys to totally. I mean, those 2 guys have got to come in and be great.
Some breaking news in the NFL. This coming from Mike Kliss out in Denver. The Broncos will exercise the $7 million guarantee option on Von Miller's $18 million salary for 2021. So they tried to kind of lower that cap number, and apparently that was a no-go with Von Miller and his camp, but the Broncos did not want to lose him, so the Broncos will be paying Von Miller $18 million this year. So it looks like he's sticking around in Denver.
That's a number.
That is a number. Of course, Bud Dupree just made $16.5 million per year.
And Von Miller has done more at his best, certainly, than Bud Dupree has done.
Good time to be an edge rusher in the NFL.
Yes, it is.
Shaq Barrett yesterday as well.
Still getting paid.
Still getting paid a whole lot of money. When we come back, we will switch gears and get into the Nashville Predators. Preds TV analyst Chris Mason will join us. We'll break down a big win yesterday for the Preds, maybe their most impressive performance of the entire season. We'll do that next. This is Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Ah, yes, it's that time of the week here on Robbie and Rex Road, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Time to bring in our good friend, Predators TV analyst, Chris Mason, on our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. C. Mace, what's going on, my man? How we doing?
What's going on, guys? Not too much. Actually, just watching the new update for Fortnite.
Oh, boy. That could be dangerous.
Oh, boy.
Fortnite guy, huh?
Day. Are you a solid Fortnite player?
Yeah, I used to do the old the Call of Duty and stuff, and I never got into Warzone, and then for whatever reason, just Fortnite. So yeah.
I respect it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Chris Mason,
Yeah.
expert Fortnite player.
It's no Sega Hockey 1993, but
Oh, I was expert level on that. I'm very average in Fortnite.
I am as well. No worries on that front. Preds TV analyst Chris Mason, brought to you by Coleman Tractor, Tennessee's largest Kubota dealer. And C-Mace, a big 4-1 win yesterday for the Preds down in Tampa Bay against the defending champions. I thought, given the circumstances and the quality of competition that you're going up against, probably the most impressive performance of the season for the Predators. What say you?
Yeah, I think so. I think, this season's been, I think we talk about it ad nauseum about the ups and downs, and it's been a lot of downs, and it's been, disappointing. And then on top of that, they have all the injuries, and you go down the list, and you're always talking about that stuff. So when they do, play like that, I thought even though in the game that they played 6-3, or they lost 6-3, I thought they played really well, given, who they're playing against and the way that game went. But this was, they came in with the right mindset, the right attitude. I mean, no one's going to feel sorry for you, as a team, no matter who's out or, how your season's going. The team that you're facing off on the other side of the ice is not going to feel sorry for you or give in at all. So I thought their mindset and their attitude, they just seemed to have a lot of jump, a lot of energy, and I thought they really just played a good, old-fashioned, just a good hockey game, good hard work and underdog type of hockey game, and it was great. And Pekka was awesome as well, especially throughout that whole game at certain points, after they scored their first goal and throughout the game. I thought he was just he was incredible. You need your goaltender to steal one for you too. But all in all, I was really impressed with how they responded and the way they came out with that kind of mindset of kind of us against the world. We're going to do this as a team and see what happens. And they held on there at the end. There's a couple dicey moments in that game where Tampa was really pushing, and it felt like I was holding my breath anyway. But I thought it was a great game all around, up and down the lineup.
C-Mace, what do you think of the Trenin-Olivier tandem? And what do you think about both those guys moving forward? 24-year-old, big, strong forwards was bringing a little edge. What's the long view of those guys?
Well, I think both those guys, I mean, you make a case. Like when you're building a team, you're not going for all skill guys, all speed. You need different elements in your lineup, and you need balance and guys that can be effective with them and Colton systems. They started they're out there at the end of the game. They started the game. They really got off. I think that first shift was important. They get the puck deep and, get on the forecheck, lay the body, and they get a couple opportunities. And really, I thought, kick-started, the momentum or the mentality for that hockey game. And I like what they bring to the table. I think Olivier at times has got into, a little bit of penalty here, penalty there. But I think in terms of what he brings to the table player-wise, he's going out there, fights Pat Maroon. He didn't have to do that, to start the third period or whatever. Pat Maroon was trying to get his guys going and fired up, and he answers the bell, and he's got some offensive upside. He can skate, lay the body. And Trenin, to me, he's a guy that I feel, he's scored at every level. He's drafted as a scorer, but he's one of those guys that when you're in the minors and you don't have that opportunity in your, NHL club level, you have to change your game a little bit, and you have to be, become something else or add more to your game. And he's done that. He's a power forward. He gets in there and he's not scared to hit anybody, doesn't back down from any physical confrontation, and he's got skill and he can skate. So he's a guy that I could see eventually, moving up in the lineup if he continues to develop and produce offensively. I think that's a guy that, you could look at as a third line, even potentially second line player down the road. But I love them. They make impact. They make impact, and they play the majority of their shifts in the offensive zone, which is always a good thing.
Preds TV analyst Chris Mason on the line with us, brought to you by Coleman Tractor, Tennessee's largest Kubota dealer. And C-Mace, obviously due to the injury situation and the suspension to Dante Fabro, which was up yesterday, made a huge save in the first period of that game, Fabro did. But they've seen a lot of younger defensemen start to come into the lineup. I want to ask you about two guys specifically, and that is Jeremy Davies, who, of course, they got back in the PK Subban trade, and Alex Carrier as well, a guy Predators fans I think, been anxious to see now here for a while. What have you thought of Carrier and Jeremy Davies and the way that they've played?
We just lost C-Mace.
I think we just lost C-Mace. We'll effort to get him back. It's been interesting from my vantage point to watch Carrier and Davies, just with how, especially Davies, the way he moves the puck. I think he's got a chance to be a part of the power play as they move forward here. I know a lot of people were underwhelmed with the return for the PK Subban trade, and we know it was essentially a salary dump. But I've been really impressed by what I've seen out of Jeremy Davies. And we've got Chris Mason back on the line with us now. See, Mace, I was asking you about Jeremy Davies and Alex Carrier. What have you seen out of those two guys specifically on the back end?
Oh, man. I mean, obviously I think the first game for both of those guys, Carrier's was a little earlier. I saw some nerves in the first few shifts. And, John Hines has often talked about, how to, as a defenseman, when you come up to the National Hockey League, how do you react under duress? And I think, they've gotten so much better at that, even from the short time here being in the National Hockey League. And given the competition they're playing against every night, I really think they're handling themselves, better than expected. And I also think it helps that they're not just called up. They're not getting stuck on the third pair, because both of those guys are used to playing big minutes. They're used to seeing power play time. They're used to, all situations. So given the injuries to, Yossi and Ellis and then Fabro out and Borowiecki, obviously they get thrown right into the fire. So they're playing, 20-plus minutes right away. They're playing top pair, second pair minutes. So I think that's really helped them. You're not coming up for one game and maybe you're going to go back down. And it's been really impressive, especially for Alex Carrier, because, he's been on the taxi squad a lot, hasn't played, hockey until he played his first game in the National Hockey League this year with Nashville. And then Jeremy Davies is having success in Milwaukee. He gets called up, and aside from the first couple of shifts, he's really settled in. And both of these guys can play in their own end. And the more they, the more games go by, the more involved they are offensively. You see them, leading, getting in on the forecheck, carrying the puck, making plays in the offensive zone, sneaking back door. So I think the fact that the Preds have had so many injuries has allowed them to, 10, 12 minutes, they've got to go in there and just keep putting them out there. And they've really, taken huge leaps, I think, in their first few games.
Are we seeing a new level, C-Mace, from Ekholm? Obviously, he's Mr. Big Board trade guy out there in the league circles, and he's been asked about it, and people are going to talk about it until something happens or doesn't. But what about his game? I mean, are you seeing anything different or better, or am I just overreacting to some of his goals?
No, I think he's in a situation where, I think we've always known how valuable Mattias Ekholm is, but it seems like he doesn't get the fanfare because you're always saying, oh my God, look at what Roman Yossi did and Ryan Ellis. And Mattias Ekholm's pretty awesome too. He's usually third on the totem pole in those conversations. But, you look back at the run they had in 2017, he was one of the biggest reasons because of the style he plays. But now I think you see, there's he's more of a focal point and a necessity of this team, and you really get to understand the type of person and the leader that he can be. And, there's not many guys that I would say are as well-rounded as Mattias Ekholm in terms of the ability to contribute offensively. He can skate for a big man. He's also really physical. He's got that game. He's a little bit of a jerk out there defensively to the other teams, which you love to have, and it makes, the other team, obviously, they know every time they go in front of the net when Mattias Ekholm is, they're probably going to get a stick. They're not going to get a free lane to the net. And I think with more of the focus on Mattias Ekholm, we're really beginning to, have that spotlight on him and the focus on Mattias. And then you also, he's one of the leaders on this hockey team. And I think when your team is in this situation, there's so many young guys. I look to, the veteran guys as, the season hasn't gone the way everybody expected, and it's tough, and, you can see the body language sometimes. So I look to the leaders to how they carry themselves in a situation like this, because it's easy to be a leader when everything's going well and you're winning and you got a good team and yada, yada, yada. Everything's happy, everything's good. But when things are tough, the old cliche, that really is when I think it reveals your character. And to me, he's been the epitome of how you lead by example, and the example that you want your young guys to follow in terms of his compete level, the way he carries himself, the competitiveness, the expectation to win no matter what, no excuses. I think he has taken the next level, and a lot of that's because more attention has been put on him, and the spotlight's on him, and that's when I think he shines the best. And right now he's definitely bringing. You talk about a potential trade piece. Well, he's increasing his trade value every game.
Preds TV analyst Chris Mason has been our guest here on Robbie and Rex Road, brought to you by Coleman Tractor, Tennessee's largest Kubota dealer. C. Mace, thanks as always for taking time to join us, and go knock 'em dead on Fortnite.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Attaboy. Absolutely. Chris Mason joins us every week here at 8:30 here on Robbie and Rex Roads on Tuesdays. And when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation on the Nashville Predators. Reset a big win yesterday for the Preds down in Tampa. Also get back into the Titans as well. All that coming up. Taking your thoughts as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And speaking of our text line, 1025 The Game and T-Mobile have teamed up to help you continue the tradition with a hockey home gating party, and it's time to text into the game line at 615-737-1025 for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Home Gate. You can watch a weekend Preds game with a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. Just text the word goalie to 615-737-1025. That's goalie to 615-737-1025. Now to enter. The winner will be contacted on Thursday, and you must be 21 or older to enter. We'll be right back. Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Preds fans, join 102.5 The Game tomorrow night from 6 to 7 p.m. for Smashville Live. Smashville Live airs every Wednesday on 102.5 The Game during the Preds season and will feature Preds players, former players, and other special guests. And you can also watch the show online via 102.5 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and TheGameNashville.com. Smashville Live, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, and Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. To view or listen to past shows, go to TheGameNashville.com/Smashville Live. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rexroad here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the Nashville Predators and the Tennessee Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, and today, Joe Rexroad, streaming live on Twitch and on YouTube at 102.5 The Game on both platforms.
Yes, and anybody who's been watching understands why Ryan Porth calls me a middle-aged coffee addict.
It's been a lot.
I put two, what are these? These are stevias. Yeah, I go with the stevia. I put 2 stevias in this one. By the way, my text line is being blown up by Stillman now. See, it's not just me picking on Jared. I mean, he comes at me a lot.
Okay.
Now, he's trying to tell me that Arlovsky equals Bayless.
Wow.
Yeah. So apparently Arlovsky said, like, the Bucks are going 16-0, which, okay. I mean, I disagree. But now Stillman's trying to say that the same thing as Bayless. I think we need to get Arlovsky, like, we need to maybe get a debate.
I agree.
Arranged between those two.
Maybe we'll stream that on Twitch and on YouTube as well.
I would take an hour of Arlovsky a day of his analysis of football. I think it'd be amazing.
That'd be great.
I would take no seconds of Skip Bayless a day.
No.
Okay?
I'm with you.
That's just me.
I'm with you.
But according to Stillman, the same guy.
The Predators, a big win yesterday down in Tampa Bay. Probably the most impressive performance of the season. And John Hines, Predators head coach, was asked about the performance by the team after the game, given the roster and given the opponent going up against the defending champs. Here's what Predators head coach John Hines had to say.
I think tonight was a pretty complete performance, and and really in multiple ways. I think 5-on-5, we played really well. We won the special teams battle. I thought one significant factor too, Adams. I think when you look at tonight's game, there was no passengers. I mean, all 4 lines played well. The 6 defensemen were there. Pex had a good night, so I think it was a pretty complete game in how we played the game, but also throughout the lineup. But to be very honest with you, I thought the Dallas game in Dallas was the same way. The 2 Carolina games were the same way. We didn't get the end result we wanted. We really felt we played really well the first night here in Tampa Bay and didn't find a way to win. And to the guys' credit, we've reinforced how we want to play and the things that we want to do, and we were able to do those tonight and find a way to win. So I think we've played some really good hockey here as of late.
So that was Predators head coach John Hines after the game yesterday. A big 4-1 win for the Nashville Predators. 4 points for Calle Jarnkrok. 1 goal, 3 assists, career high.
Guy keeps, I don't know.
Just keeps producing.
What do you want? What do you want from Calle Jarnkrok?
He's been great this year.
And Calle Jarnkrok,
probably warrants a selection tomorrow on Preds Pick to Click, or on Thursday. Preds Pick to Click.
You would think. Maybe you should start, figuring this out, Robbie.
Probably should.
If Roman Josi is the front man of this band, in which I'm
now part of,
wearing a half shirt, hitting the cowbell in the background. I mean, Jarnkrok's got to be right
sure.
next to him. Yeah, the Josi Jarnkrok. We can come up with a band name for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely could. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Yeah, Soft J's.
The Soft J's.
Yarn, Yos.
That's
pretty good.
I like it.
Look at Porth.
They both like to go yogging.
Well done. Very nice.
Porth like that.
And they think it's a... Wait.
He's done.
No.
All righty.
Does this mean he's seen Anchorman?
I think so.
You've
seen
impressed.
Anchorman, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think Anchorman's overrated, but...
God, okay. But tell me more about me, you, and Dupree.
Yes. Tell me more about the great you, me, and Dupree. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Nate texted in. It says, as a fan, I'm taking it one game at a time. We know we'll be sellers, and the Panthers have been playing well this season. The Preds just beat the Cup champs without their starting goalie. How much confidence does this win give the Preds to go into Sunrise and take 2 more points coming up on Thursday?
I like that there's fans focused on the wins and the standings,
Yeah.
and not just the trading. But on the trading front, do you sometimes feel like, gosh, you sure you want to trade Ekholm?
Yeah, I felt about like that way the whole
The
time.
whole time, yeah. Yeah. Boy, you better get back some.
Dude looks awfully good, doesn't he?
He is awfully good.
Yes, he is. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Heidi from Dixon texts in and says, just anxious and ready for these trades to happen already. Yossi is the only player I'm excited to keep.
How is it that Heidi just texted in and didn't rip me in any way?
I know it's a little bit of a different strategy.
Keep reading her message.
Well, you
and
called
I'm
her
like,
out for it yesterday, so.
I don't want her to stop. I think it's funny.
Is it going to be Joe's Dupree?
I was just going to say, is this Heidi's Dupree?
Or
Yeah,
Joe's
Heidi's Dupree.
Whose Dupree is this?
Joe's Bud?
Oh, I like that. Joe's Bud.
I'm going back to college.
Well, Boar's done for the rest of the show. All right, cool.
He's howling in there.
Oh, man. Speaking of the Titans, we're going to have Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports coming up at 9 o'clock, as he does each and every Tuesday here on the program at 9 o'clock. We'll get into free agency and the moves made by the Titans with him. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland texts in and says, Bud Dupree was a nice pickup. All the naysayers can say he was surrounded by top talent, but the Steelers' defense was killing people until he got hurt. Then they fell apart. We needed a great defensive leader. It's a great pickup for the Titans.
No, that's a good point. They definitely did. They missed him. I mean, it all worked together, and it's always tough when it's sort of like when we talk about quarterbacks sometimes, right? It's like, well, but Mac Jones had all that talent. Well, I hope you're listening, Drew Chester. He also threw the ball really, really well. So, is it his fault that those guys are first-round picks? Does that knock him down? Apparently it doesn't. I'm seeing more and more people who like Mac Jones. And it's in this way, it's like, okay, so yes, he played against a opposite a guy who got a lot of attention, who was a great pass rusher, who was a better player, T.J. Watt. But that defense before he went down was really the best defense in the NFL, right? I don't know if it was number one statistically, but I think it was
they
the
were
most
undefeated until he went down.
It was the most fearsome defense in the NFL, and he was a big part of that. So it's look, that was part of why I was kind of iffy on him, the ACL, the other part, and we'll see. But the guy has produced. So it's kind of the opposite of last year. It's like, well, Clowney doesn't get sacks. He does a lot of other things. I think Bud Dupree does other things too, but he actually has the production to show for himself, and I think that's why he's getting paid what he is.
I think so too. And
if you finish plays, even if you have great players around you, that means something in this league.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And if he's healthy, he's a guy, and you talked about the film you saw on him earlier, and they've been showing clips all day long here on the NFL Network inside the studio here. That guy's a monster when he's on. When he's healthy, he can rush right through people. He's got the speed as well. And, I mean, he's a double-digit sack guy. How long have Titans fans been clamoring to go after a guy that's still theoretically in the prime of his career that's a double-digit sack guy? Here we are. It's Bud Dupree.
And when he has 3.5 sacks next year, then everybody can complain.
Yes. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Heidi texts back in and says, no, Bud's going to be decent. Joe cannot have credit for him.
Okay. I'll just take credit for Joe's Clowney, who I saw somebody yesterday be like, okay, so now the Titans can sign Clowney as the third guy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Those dominoes are starting to fall, baby.
He'll take $5 million.
Let's go back to the text line. Chris texts in and says, trading Ekholm is the equivalent of the Titans drafting Isaiah Wilson. Oh.
Really?
How about that?
Okay. Wouldn't it be the equivalent of the Titans trading someone great who was then great somewhere else?
Yeah.
And they miss him?
I guess so.
Like maybe it's the equivalent of watching Jonnu Smith go to multiple Pro Bowls with Belichick.
Yeah, could be that.
And your offense takes a big step back and you miss him and cry.
Yeah. Kathlena texts in and says, trading Ekholm would make me as mad as I was when the Shea Weber trade happened. Kathlena does not have fond memories of the Shea Weber trade.
What was the percentage? We've talked about this, but remind me. Percentage approval rate of Predators fans when that trade happened?
I was over 50-50.
It was over 50.
Yeah. But I think
was it 75-25?
I don't know if it was that high, but I mean, Shea Weber, people love Shea Weber.
Of course.
So there was that part of it, I think, was almost 100%. But I think most people were okay with the trade, understood it.
Yeah. It was a good trade.
You bet a good return if it's Matthias Ekholm, though. I've said that from the beginning. I think long and hard about trading that guy. We'll see what happens.
When my called shot comes through and Morgan Frost and picks come from Philly,
yeah,
All the pressure's on you, Morgan Frost.
Right now, apparently the going price for Matthias Ekholm, according to Elliot Friedman yesterday on his 31 Thoughts podcast, 2 prospects and a first-round pick.
That sounds about right.
So it has moved from a prospect and a first-rounder to 2 prospects and a first.
That's what we've been talking about for a couple weeks. Like, that's where the conversation begins with me.
Yeah, I mean,
Build
look,
on from there.
and it's just a situation where if I'm David Poyle, I want Matthias Ekholm to be part of everything that's to come.
Yeah.
But how do you really build stuff if you don't trade guys when they have this kind of value?
Yeah.
It's a dilemma.
It's a tough dilemma to be in.
The trade deadline right now is a buyer's market, but with Matthias Ekholm, he is by far and away the top defenseman.
Yeah.
So the Preds are going to be able to get something very good for Ekholm.
They'll be able to dictate the market for sure. And if that's the route they choose to go, they'll be able to get a solid haul back. I don't think there's any question about that. When we come back, we will join Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. He'll join us here on the show as he does each and every Tuesday at 9 o'clock to talk all things NFL free agency and a little more about Joe's Bud as well. We'll do that next. This is Robbie and Rex Road, live from the wholesaling studio powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. The unofficial beginning of NFL free agency underway yesterday, and it was quite eventful yesterday, both for the Titans and around the league. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, what's going on, man? How we doing?
What's going on, gents? How you doing today?
We are doing wonderful, Charles. Hope
Good.
you are as well. And Charles, Titans fans pretty excited today with Bud Dupree coming in and Danico Autry as well on that front there for the Titans defense. What do you think of those moves by John Robinson and the Titans with Bud Dupree and Danico Autry, and how much does that help them on that side of the ball heading into this next season?
Well, Dupree, as long as the health is where it needs to be, I think it's a good signing. One of the things that I thought was interesting about Dupree is so I have an all-pro vote and, defensive player of the year, MVP, all these things. And when I made some calls on defensive player of the year and I asked about TJ Watt, a couple of teams, told me they could see a pretty significant difference in how easy it was to deal with him with Bud Dupree off the field. Now, I'm not saying it was easy to deal with him, but they said, look, it was a completely different scenario. Once Bud Dupree was off the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think one of the things that you saw manifest was the Cleveland Browns playoff game, and how Watt was kind of contained, and I think they had a much easier time dealing with Watt once they didn't have to factor in Bud Dupree. So I think if the health is there, you've got your number one pass rusher, and he can make other guys better on that defense, particularly from a pass rushing standpoint. I think the idea is that Autry would be one of those guys, and I think Autry's a good signing, low risk, I think cost effective. Dupree's the one where you're really rolling the dice there. And I would tend to think that this is going to affect where they would go with Clowney, but I will say this about Clowney, better guy when there's a second, and I know some people argue, well, he's better when J.J. Watt wasn't on the field for the Texans. I don't think that's really the case, particularly if you had talked to the Texans around that time. I think Clowney's a better guy on the field if he's got somebody to compete with in that room and in there with him. Now, again, you sign Dupree and Autry, and I don't think Clowney becomes necessarily as much of a priority to return, but I actually think those three guys in the mix together, you probably get more out of Clowney, but I think cost is going to be one of the things on Clowney that's going to be kind of interesting and who pursues him. But I think it's a good start for the Titans. It sucks to lose, Jonnu Smith and obviously Corey Davis, but seeing the deals that they got, knowing the availability of wide receivers, particularly in the draft right now, you're getting a flood of wide receivers and guys that can be productive right away. I kind of get that. I think you're seeing it with Kenny Golladay and, some of the other wide receivers that are getting plucked off the market are more kind of, they're being done at deals where you can see teams are sort of bargain shopping a little bit. You see who the Patriots with Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. I get sacrificing the guys that they sacrificed, although, it's too bad about Jonnu Smith because that was a guy that I think they really had super high hopes for, but the deal that he signed in New England is, it's a top-level tight end deal, and that's you would expect them to expect him to max out there.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, calls Clowney, not everybody, but some people on this station call Clowney Joe's Clowney. I mean, after that, I might call him C-Rob's Clowney after that. But, man, I'd be shocked. But, hey, I guess crazier things have happened with that guy. But speaking of New England, Charles, so Schefter's got Hunter Henry, 3 years, $37.5 million to go with John, to go with everything else they did. Like, is Bill Belichick the middle-aged man buying a Ferrari to compensate for other issues? Like, what's going on here?
Well, I think you can see part of, what New England's doing. I mean, first off, their number one need is quarterback there, but they addressed it by, bringing Cam Newton back at least as a bridge, with a bridge style type of deal. Okay. And I think the thought process in New England is maybe we didn't get the best out of Cam, and if we turn this into a very, tight end driven, well, first off, I mean, I think they see that the mismatches that are out there for them, tight end mismatches, you can chop up defenses, pretty well, particularly if you can put two pass catching tight ends on the field at the same time. Teams have a really hard time rolling the right corner onto one of those guys and then having the right linebacker on the other. And so, you can see sort of what they're doing. I think they're taking the offense, they're trying to, pull it in a little bit. It's going to be a little more compact. I think they're going to run the ball a heck of a lot when you see what they've done with the offensive line, bringing in Trent Brown, getting rid of Marcus Cannon. And this is going to be a more run-oriented, tight end-oriented offense that they're trying to dial up here. But I think part of the reason why they're doing that is because if Cam becomes the guy that they end up leaning on, okay, great, they stick with the Cam plan, and I think they would draft a rookie wide receiver, or a rookie quarterback, and try to build out from there. Even the wide receivers, you got your X and your Y with Nelson Aguilar and then, Kendrick Bourne. But again, I think those are very much bargain shopping kind of deals, the money that they spend on those guys, particularly the commitment. It's just he's spending a lot of money on a lot of different guys, the Patriots are. And I don't think they're really, other than, they blew out Matt Judon, somewhat. That's kind of what he does defensively. He clearly spends more money defensively than he does offensively. Welcome to Bill Belichick. But I don't know what to say. Look, they got to resolve the quarterback. Like, to me, we can talk about all these different deals and the money that they're doling out, but really it comes down to what can they get out of the quarterback. And Brady's not there. Brady clearly made a difference, and being able to solve the quarterback position now is, I think, going to be the thing that defines Bill Belichick post Brady. And we always knew it was going to be that way, but you can spend $1 gajillion on all these different guys, and if the quarterback's not right, that's all anybody's going to be talking about there.
Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Charles, speaking of Tom Brady, it looks like the Buccaneers, for the most part, going to be able to keep the band together. Shaq Barrett re-signing yesterday a 4-year, $72 million deal, with a cap hit coming in this year at somewhere under $6 million. So impressive finagling that the Bucs have been able to do. How have they been able to do this, and what do you think of their chances bringing back a lot of the same group heading back next year?
Well, Brady giving back the $19 million this year, and I mean, when I say give it back, kicking it down the road for them, I don't think there's any question that helped them considerably. But I think it's remarkable that they were able to tag Chris Godwin, who, now that I kind of see what's going on with Kenny Galladay, I still think Godwin would have been in a different echelon. I kind of question whether Godwin would have gotten the $18 million deal that I suspected he would have gotten in free agency. And again, I do think he separates himself from some of those guys just from a speed standpoint. But to be able to tag Godwin, Levante David, the 2-year, $25 million deal was a sub-market deal. I think he would have done better in free agency, particularly with teams kind of looking for linebackers of that type. And then Shaq Barrett, I think even that deal, slightly sub-market, in terms of a lot of teams out there needed pass rushers. A lot of them, it's sort of a desert, with pass rushers, and that's part of why Judon got the deal that he got from a team like New England. But, Rob Gronkowski coming back into the fold, I think Antonio Brown, I suspect Antonio Brown ultimately will. So to me, you take all their biggest guys and just to get all those free agents back is just monumental. Now, they have a lot of work to do. They have a ton of mid-level and sort of what you would call small ball free agents to deal with now, and they're going to have to really, jump through some hoops. And I still think there could be some restructuring there with a couple of guys to try and sign some of the lower tier free agents. What's interesting with Tampa is now, do you have any mid-level free agents? Once we get to the second tier free agency, some veteran guys who sit there and go, man, I'm not getting the money I thought I would get. I don't want to lock myself into like a 3-year deal or even some of these 2-year deals that are being offered to me. Maybe I do a 1-year deal with Tampa, sort of how Shaq Barrett did when he left Denver, and bet on myself, go hopefully win a championship with Tom Brady, get some shine on me, and then go into free agency in 2022 and hit it big. I think that's what's going to be interesting here, is to see whether or not they can land some odd bargain deals in the second tier of free agency with some veterans who aren't necessarily getting the money that they thought they would.
All right, we can't have you on without the weekly Watson wins.
You can add Russell Wilson to that now too, because man, I'm telling you, that one's getting there's a little more to the Russell Wilson thing than that's continued to develop. And with Watson, I actually think that sort of impacts Russell Wilson impacts Watson's situation. And the reason why, so Russell Wilson, I think if he would open the teams that he would be willing to be dealt to, he has that no trade clause. If he would be willing to include Miami and the New York Jets, I think there's a chance that somebody could put together a package that might actually pique the curiosity of the Seattle Seahawks. And I think that team's probably the Jets. And, if you take the Jets off the board with Deshaun Watson, I mean, it sort of develops into a Miami or bust situation unless, San Francisco just goes crazy with Deshaun Watson and throws some players into, a huge package to go get him. But what's interesting with Russell Wilson is that I think from talking to people in Seattle, it sure sounds like they would be open, if the package was right, to dealing him. And maybe Russell Wilson's camp now is sort of like, well, maybe we'd be open to opening up the number of teams that he would be willing to be dealt to. And what's interesting is that the tail end of the conversation with both of those sides is they're both sitting there going, we don't really know how to put it back together again if he were to return with Seattle. There's just these trust issues that now, have developed in both camps, and both parties feel sort of burned by the other one in terms of some of the media leaks. And they're sort of shrugging, going, yeah, I don't know what it would look like to try to get us back together now. And so all it really takes is Russell Wilson going, hey, you know what? You want to deal me to the New York Jets? Fine. Open that up, and then we'll see what package the Jets offer, to the Seattle Seahawks. So in a weird way, I kind of feel like Russell Wilson jumped in front of Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's going to push out to the draft. We'll see it, I think, resolve itself closer to the draft, whereas Russell Wilson, I think, either with Chicago or with the New York Jets, is something that if it was going to happen, is going to pop probably in the next 2 weeks.
Corey Davis knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he does.
I'm like, what are you doing, Jets? But he knows. He's getting one of those two guys. He's going to be fine.
We'll see. I think he took decent money that was on the table for him, and a whole heck of a lot of targets. He should get 1 million targets, with the Jets, regardless of who the quarterback is. But I'm just telling you, I think if the Jets are sitting there and they're like, look, if Russ is willing to come here, we're willing to make a package offer for him, to potentially get this done. And the Bears are still in the mix there too, but I feel like the Bears would have to gut themselves, player-wise. They'd have to throw some players in there to really, get Russell Wilson off the Seattle Seahawks. I never thought the Seahawks would consider trading him, and I think part of the value that they see in retaining him, beyond the fact that he's an MVP caliber quarterback playing in his prime, they're sitting there going, hey, we're paying him like $36 million a year for the next 3 years. That's actually a pretty good deal all of a sudden in the NFL. It's not so bad when, considering the deal Dak Prescott just did. So it's wild. You just see the Seattle Seahawks sitting there, and they are clearly feeling like, Russell Wilson put some stuff out there about Pete Carroll and some of the players on offense that feels damaging to them, and they're not quite sure how that would fix, or how they could fix the chemistry in the locker room if he were to come back. It turned into a really weird situation there, and all of a sudden Deshaun Watson's sitting here going, hey, some of these teams that I depended on really getting involved here with me are now looking at Russell Wilson and going, knocking on the door.
Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports has been our guest here on Robbie and Rex Road. And Charles, we appreciate you taking time to join us on a big show for us today. We're streaming live on YouTube and on Twitch, so that means people get to see our beautiful faces. So thanks for being a part of the show on this historic day.
Joe's gonna like tank YouTube. If you had told me this, Who owns YouTube? It was like Google, right? I
Yeah,
just sold Google stock this morning.
Hey, have you seen the Wombo app, Charles?
Jeez.
I'm gonna find a picture of you from college and put. You'll see.
Yeah.
We'll get you all hooked up.
I'll tweet you the video I had.
Google the Wombo
It'll be
app.
great.
All right, guys.
Charles,
Hey, man.
we'll talk to you later. When we come back, we'll react to a little bit of what Charles had to say there and continue the conversation on the Tennessee Titans. We'll do that next. This is Robbie and Rex Road on ESPN 102.5 The Game. The Game Bracket Challenge is back. You can sign up and play now for your chance to win great prizes now that all the teams have been selected. Go to thegamenashville.com and fill out your bracket to compete for a chance to win those great prizes. The Game Bracket Challenge is brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Cool Springs Wine and Spirits, European Collision Repair, and Coach's Corner Sports Grill. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. And Joe, while we were talking with Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports in the last segment, and by the way, he's weighed in on the Wombo video that I tweeted out, which is amazing, here on Twitter. Adam Schefter reporting that New England is starting again with the tight ends. Hunter Henry, 3 years, $37.5 million, $25 million of which is guaranteed. So they signed Jonnu Smith yesterday to a 4-year, $50 million contract, $31 million of which is guaranteed. And today, Hunter Henry, 3 years, $37.5 million, $25 million guaranteed. The top 2 tight ends on the board gone, both in New England.
Man, spend it all, Belichick. It's like Charles said. I mean, adding some players here, going nuts, the talk of free agency. But who's your quarterback?
Yeah, that's a great question.
To me, it's compensating for something that's lacking.
Agreed.
In your life, which is Tom Brady.
Yeah. And our friend Justin Beasley from WSMV on Twitter says that this just kind of shows you what Tom Brady meant to the Patriots. Now that Belichick's just throwing money around. Didn't used to do that all the time on offense. Now he's throwing the money around everywhere.
Yep.
I love you some Tom Brady.
The GOAT. The GOAT of GOATs.
The GOAT of GOATs.
The omnipotent sea monster that he is. Now it's
a lot of 2 tight end sets for the Patriots out there.
Hey man, I mean it's kind of crazy. Like the top 2 guys, clearly, whether people realize that about Jonnu or not, they should know now. And both going to New England. That's going to be interesting.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dan texts in and says, "What about bringing Sue to the Titans to round off the defensive line? Could a veteran like Sue solidify the defensive line for the Titans moving forward?"
I was a proponent of Sue from the start here, and really in every offseason he's been available. If you can make it work, they need more. They need more up front. They need another corner. They need multiple receivers. And right now they've got 1 tight end. They got Jeff Swaim coming back with a lot more work there to do. And even if they do sign Pruitt and Ferkser, to me, they have to draft or sign someone else.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work to do still.
There's still a lot of work to do, and we'll wait and see what the cap hit is for Bud Dupree. We're going to talk a little bit more about Bud Dupree coming up here in the next segment. But still some work to do from John Robinson on that front. But Charles saying there, what did you think about the Russell Wilson noise? I've just kind of dismissed the Russell Wilson stuff and thought that eventually, like, the Seahawks have no choice but to try to figure this stuff out. But Charles talks like there's some real friction there, that apparently there's a chance that maybe it doesn't get resolved. And that maybe if Wilson is open to extending that list a little bit and being open to being traded maybe to Miami or to the New York Jets, that there's a chance maybe the Seahawks would move on. I would still be surprised, but the more you hear Charles talk, the more I get to realizing that this is a pretty bad situation between Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, is it irreparable? That's the question. Yeah. I mean, it's clearly he hit some nerves there. Is that irreparable? And like he said, that deal, I mean, we've talked about Tannehill's deal, right? 29.5 is going to look like Dollar General here pretty soon. But for Russell Wilson, what he is, that his deal, as you move forward, the cap goes up.
Looks pretty good.
It's not quite having him on his rookie deal when you win a Super Bowl, but it's pretty good. So you got to really be sure about that. But it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it in the way Charles explained it, with those two kind of, impacting each other potentially here. But how about Corey Davis? You could have one of those two guys.
Impressive foresight by Corey Davis. Like when he signed with the Jets yesterday, my first thought was, well, number one, good for you on getting paid the money that you've gotten paid. And number two, have fun running those routes for Sam Darnold. We'll see how that works out in that New York Jets offense. But, hey, maybe he knows something we don't. And they're going to end up with either Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson as their quarterback. Or Zach Wilson, who apparently is a fusion between Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
According to some draft reports.
And Johnny Unitas and Otto Graham.
Yeah. Chris Sims.
And Jay Burwanger.
The greatest quarterback of all time.
Chris Sims. That's right. Chris Sims thinks he's the
Aaron
guy,
Rodgers
right?
Mahomes combo.
Hey, Chris Sims studied the film. I trust you. It's like I trust people like Chris Sims who actually, dig in on stuff, have some not played, To Stillman, Skip Bayless, the same level. Same level of analysis.
There you go.
He keeps blowing me up on this, by the way.
That's okay. You'll get over it.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Titans and look ahead more closely at Dupree and Autry coming into the fold Is this the breakthrough that the Titans have been waiting for on defense? And what do we think about the price that the Titans paid to bring them in? We'll discuss that when we come back. But right now, I got to tell you about my friends at FanDuel. And there's always this time of year that one team that ruins your bracket. And that's why this year you got to bet on the tournament on FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Because on FanDuel, your first bet is risk-free, and it doesn't matter if you're betting on a 16 seed or a #1 seed. New users get up to $1,000 back in site credit if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel's got the odds on all the action with games day and night, an easy-to-use app, multiple deposits and fast withdrawals, and always-on promotions. Your next chance to win with FanDuel is only minutes away. And if that's not enough, FanDuel wants to make you a millionaire. They're giving away $1 million to one lucky bettor, and new and existing users get an additional shot at the payout every day you bet on the tourney. So if you want a shot at becoming a millionaire or even a thousandaire, just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Use promo code ROB so they know that I sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code ROB. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. No purchase necessary. Restrictions apply for $1 million drawing. Risk-free offer for first online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires 14 days after receipt. Terms apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. And for problem gambling support, call 1-800-889-9789. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rexroad here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Ryan Porther with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live today on Twitch and on YouTube. So if hearing us isn't good enough, you can also see our beautiful faces today on the live stream. Joe Rexroad having a wonderful time on the live stream on Twitch and YouTube today. Very popular.
Charles claims that I never looked that young in college. The Wombo picture, but that was around the time that Katie and I were doing Atkins.
Ooh.
I actually got too thin, which I know is hilarious to think about.
You still look great.
Yeah. No, I mean that picture is a great reminder that after age 18, we're just all decomposing, deteriorating, and heading toward our death. Good night, everybody. Have a great day.
Inspirational comments from Joe Rexroad there. Not wrong.
And if you watch on Twitch and YouTube, you can see a close-up of Joe Rexroad's goatee as he sips on his coffee.
2 stevias.
Yeah. Did I go double stevia on this one?
I think so.
Yeah. Blowing it out today, man. Just for all the viewers.
That's right. So if you'd like to see Joe Rexroad's beautiful face, check us out on Twitch and on YouTube at 102.5 The Game. Joe discussing, as we have been all morning long, the Tennessee Titans and the moves made yesterday in free agency. Danico Autry coming in, Bud Dupree coming in as well, Kendall Lamb as a reserve offensive tackle as well. But the 2 headliners are Dupree and Danico Autry. And we've talked about the price tag as well. When you look at the contract signed, or I guess officially about to be signed here this week with the Titans and the agreements that they've come to. Lots of money for Bud Dupree. 5 years, $85 million, $16.5 million per year. Danico Autry, a 3-year deal worth $21.5 million, $9 million guaranteed, $14.25 million over 2 years. That's a lot of money to tie up in these 2 guys, and Danico Autry and Bud Dupree. Is it the right decision made by the Titans? Did they spend the money wisely, coming in and sacrificing offense for defense, specifically help with the front of the defense and trying to address the pass rush?
I mean, you're asking the guy who, when they signed Clowney, yes, John Robinson, you win. You win the offseason. So, I don't know. I don't have a freaking clue. I like Autry. I think Autry is going to be a nice signing. I really like him up front with Simmons. And Dupree, look, you're paying that guy to be a multi-year, double-digit sack monster.
Yep.
And I don't know if he's going to be that or not. You're not paying him, I mean, frankly, you're not paying him to be Harold Landry.
No.
Harold Landry's been a nice player for the Titans. He needs help. He's played his heart out. He's played hard. He's played every snap. But you just brought in a guy who, and unlike Clowney, who came in here and could have maybe not satisfied everyone, but could have made a big impact without big sack numbers, because he's never had those. Bud Dupree has 19.5 sacks in his last 27 games. So that's what you just paid for him to sack the quarterback.
Yeah, and he's got to do that. I mean, he's got 11.5 sacks in 2019 in 16 games. Last year only plays the 11 games, but has 8 sacks during that span, had 15 quarterback hits in the 11 games last year as well. Like, he's got to be a guy that is consistently putting pressure on the quarterback. If he comes in next year and has 4.5 sacks, I mean, that's not going to fly. That's not what the Titans have brought him in here for. So I think a risk in Bud Dupree, we talked about it before free agency began, how of the options out there, Bud Dupree, I was hesitant. I was hesitant about him with the injury coming off a torn ACL, and I realize a torn ACL does not mean the same thing as it used to mean. I mean, Taylor Lewan's got a torn ACL as well. I don't have a lot of concern about him coming back in and being productive next year. Coming off the edge, I realize is a little bit different in that regard, but ACLs are things guys come back from all the time nowadays in the NFL. He is 28 years old, and part of the concern with a lot of Titans fans has also been, Dupree has had TJ Watt on the other side the last couple of years, and that's a heck of a guy to have on the other side if you're Bud Dupree. Now, a lot of Steelers fans would argue, yeah, Bud Dupree's a heck of a guy to have on the other side if you're TJ Watt as well. So Obviously, you're not going to have that here with the Titans. No disrespect to Harold Landry. He's not TJ Watt. How does that affect Bud Dupree and how he rushes the passer? How does that affect the attention that he receives? And how does it affect Harold Landry? Like, how does Harold Landry benefit from this? That's a question, if I'm a Titans fan, I'm very interested in seeing as well.
And Charles Robinson, last segment, brought up that other teams talking about Dupree said, look at what happened to that defense when he was not there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, obviously, he made plays. I mean, he was a big part of that. The Watt thing, it's actually a little bit like Clowney, even like when Watt was at his peak. There was some, because Clowney, he was getting tagged, and there were other teams looking at him and everything, and it's like, what is he without Watt? Now, you did see him without Watt some because Watt got hurt too, but there's always that the Steelers had a lot going. But obviously, as soon as he left, they got worse on defense. So that has to tell you something at least. He's apparently, he's supposed to be ready. He has said this on the record that he's supposed to be ready for training camp with the knee. So we'll see on that too. I mean, he got hurt in December, I believe, right? Or was it November? It was either late November. So, I mean, that's a short, really, period of time, especially for someone of that size. But it does happen quite a bit, probably more often than it doesn't happen nowadays with an ACL, especially if you talk to doctors about stuff like that. Like the meniscus is an ACL tear can mean a lot of different things. Can be a lot of different, there's a wide range within that.
Right.
And if you haven't had a lot of injury history around there, then a lot of times it can be fast. So, but yeah, the Titans could really use him right through camp and from the start. And they're going to need him to be a star in the next few years. They're paying him to be a star defensive player, one of the top pass rushers in the NFL.
They are, and that's some big money, and I had a little bit of sticker shock when I saw the price tag on Bud Dupree yesterday, but it's pretty obvious that that's the going rate when you look at the edge rushers around the league right now. So Titans putting the money where the mouth is and going after and taking another swing at a big-name free agent at the edge rushing position. I'm going to say this. I bet it works out, and you get more production than you got out of Clowney and Beasley. I'm comfortable saying
wow.
that.
You going to put yourself
this is
out
your
there
shot
like
Friday.
That? Ooh,
yeah, I was
man.
going to say that one until then, but I'm putting that out there right now.
Yeah, okay. Way to go.
Thank you.
The Porth is nodding in approval. He agrees.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to say by the end of week 1 combined, Autry and Dupree will have more sacks than
week
combined Clowney and Beasley.
Okay.
1 week.
After the first game.
And what if they don't? Fire John Robinson?
Yeah. What's the consequence?
It's an off-season failure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Total fail.
Just checking in. Well, the other part of the pass rush that we've talked about for weeks now is the position that Danico Autry just filled, and that is bringing somebody else on the line alongside of Jeffrey Simmons and seeing how that helps your pass rush. We talked about it a little with J.J. Watt. When that conversation took place, Danico Autry comes in, 3 years, $21.5 million. He's 30 years old. He'll be 31 by the time next season begins. So, probably still in the middle of the prime of his career, but he doesn't have a whole lot of elite-level years left. Danico Autry, though, a guy, 7.5 sacks a year ago, could come in and can cause some havoc on the interior there for the Titans. I'm interested, number one, to see how he himself impacts this defense. But number two, what does having him next to Jeffrey Simmons do for Jeffrey Simmons? That to me, if I'm a Titans fan, that's a big deal because we talked about it all the time last year. Jeffrey Simmons made a lot of big plays for this Titans defense, especially early in the season. I think injuries played a part into it later when he wasn't as productive and wasn't making those plays as often as before. But this has got to be a season and a scenario with Dupree coming in and with Autry coming in. You need to see a pretty significant step taken from Jeffrey Simmons, in my opinion.
More cowbell. That's what this is.
There's more cowbell.
There's more cowbell for that defense. You got 2 Mississippi State guys joining forces. One of them a first-round pick 2 years ago. One of them an undrafted free agent who has been a really good player in this league. And I really like the signing, and I do. I think it should help Jeffrey Simmons. And you got to have – they've had other solid players up there, but I think what you saw with Casey in Simmons' rookie year late, Casey was obviously a guy who get to the quarterback. He had pass rush moves. He was a problem in obvious passing situations, and I think that's what you'll get from Autry too. He's not just big physical guy who can be disruptive. He's a guy who knows how to get to the quarterback from. So again, that should help the whole thing. In theory, that should help all of them. And it's interesting with Autry leaving the Colts to go to the Titans. I always wonder about that. Is there some?
Not like the Colts didn't have money to bring him back.
Right. So is it just a matter of? I mean, look, the Steelers were putting out there that they wanted to sign Dupree. And so sometimes you look at the number and, okay, well, it's not, he wants to go to the market. They can't come to something, and the market is just like, okay, oof. It's like the Titans with Jonnu Smith. I think it's a big loss. I think it's going to hurt to watch him for Titans fans because I think he's got big years ahead. But you also can't, the price tag it's a non-starter. It's just too much with all your other needs. So for the Colts, I don't know, is Autry – it's surprising that they wouldn't want to bring him back. I know DeForest Buckner is the centerpiece of that line, but Autry's been a really good player for them. And for him, is coming here part of, the Colts not wanting to pay him? I'm going to go stick it to you from your division rival.
Yeah.
That happens sometimes in free agency.
Darius Leonard, very complimentary of Danico Autry yesterday on Twitter. Said the Titans are getting a dog. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And he's a fun player to watch. That's you hear a lot of that coming out of Indy. That's a loss, and that he's just a really solid football player. The Titans had to do that, not just on the edge. So the fact that they got two aspects of the pass rush dealt with in one day is kind of exciting.
When we come back, we will wrap up the show and revisit the poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. Also take your thoughts on the Titans' moves made so far in free agency. Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. That's next. This is Robbie and Rexroad. You're on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. The final segment of the day here on Robbie and Rex Road. Streaming live on Twitch and on YouTube at 102.5 The Game. Joe Rex Road waving at the crowd, waving at the camera. Hang out with us on Twitch and the YouTube. See our pretty faces.
How many gallons of coffee have people watched me drink today?
Several.
About 10.
Several gallons.
Middle-aged coffee addicts.
Hey. Got to do what you got to do, man. Let's go back to the poll question of the day at 102.5 The Game on Twitter. And today's question is this. Titans fans, of these three options, which player would you have preferred to see them sign yesterday to their reported contract? And the options are Bud Dupree at $16.5 million per year, Corey Davis at $12.3 million per year, or Jonnu Smith at $12.5 million per year. 260 votes are in. 68% going with Bud Dupree at $16.5 million per year. 17% say Corey Davis. 15% say Jonnu Smith at $12.5.
Disrespect for Jonnu Smith.
That number is a little bit higher for Jonnu than I thought it would be. 12.5, yeah. I thought he'd get somewhere around 10.5.
Oh, the number. Oh, the salary number. Right.
Yeah, not the percentage number in the poll question. Sorry,
Yeah.
I should have clarified.
Yeah. I got you.
The salary number.
Yeah. I guess I would have probably guessed him around 10, 11.
Yeah.
And Corey Davis, to Porth's point, some people projected him higher. I mean, to me, this is but that's the thing. The projections to me were way off the map ridiculous when you're talking about 14, 15 for him. I think 9, 10 is probably about right. And good for him that he got this much.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he knows something we don't about quarterbacks that'll be throwing him the ball in the future. Though. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, what are your thoughts on Danielle Hunter from the Vikings? Now, apparently some friction there between Hunter and the Vikings could be made available at that point. Would that be a route you would consider if you're the Tennessee Titans?
Well, what are you going to trade? You got to trade a lot.
You got to trade a lot.
Danielle Hunter is one of the most successful pass rushers the last few years of the NFL. So, I mean, I think you just signed Bud Dupree, right? I mean, I think this is a topic certainly that is worth discussing before they gave $16.5 million a year to Bud Dupree. But what are you going to do now? Are you just going to be all edge rushers now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't play last year. He's got 14.5 sacks in 2018, 14.5 sacks in 2019. He didn't play last year, but I mean, he's only 26 years old.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's a monster.
Yeah,
he is
a beast.
Yeah, he's unblockable. So great player, but I mean, you just
get him out of there.
You just invested a ton in Bud Dupree, so got other areas to address.
Get him out of there.
Yeah, you trade Bud Dupree?
No, I'm just saying for the sake of my Green Bay Packers, get him out of Minnesota.
Oh, I got you now.
Yeah.
I got you. You don't want anyone to touch your precious Aaron Rodgers.
Can't be touching Aaron Rodgers out there. No, look, I think certainly if you don't have Bud Dupree, Danielle Hunter's a name you would consider, but I don't think there's any chance that happens now at this point. If you're the Titans, like right now, if you're the Titans, like the next step is figuring out what you're going to do at wide receiver and figuring out what you're going to do at tight end. I mean, you get Jeff Swaim back in the fold today, which is good. I think that's a good signing, a one-year deal, and he's going to be important to what they do, especially in the running game as they move forward here. But right now, your receiving room is A.J. Brown, and that's pretty much it. Like, you've got to find some ways to address that. Now, free agency is not over. You can still make some moves in free agency, but it is interesting with the moves that they made yesterday, bringing in Bud Dupree and Danico Autry. The way I feel about the first-round pick has changed. Like, I've just assumed for months that it's going to be an edge rusher or it's going to be a defensive lineman that can come in and help you immediately. And I still think at some point you probably need to go that route if you're the Titans in the draft. You've got to build up some depth there. But right now, just based on what the roster looks like with these two coming in, I think the first-round pick probably needs to be either a wide receiver or a corner. And I'm not sure which way I'd lean. I'd probably give the slight edge to wide receiver, but I think one of those two position groups probably the way to go in the first round.
Yeah, and it may be clearer after this is all over, too. After free agency is over. They may go sign a decent veteran corner to be their third corner. I don't think Desmond King will be here. and they may go sign a couple receivers. But there's no one that they're going to sign at receiver to me that would stop the importance of drafting a receiver high. What does that sound? What
I don't know
what is going on?
Laughing at, but he's just losing it.
Well, I hear did you hear this?
Yeah.
What does that sound?
I don't know.
Is that somebody talking back to us on Twitch on the other side of the video?
Could be.
Carol Ann? Anybody get that
Heidi
reference?
Dixon has made her way through the Twitch.
Someone out there, see if you.
I don't know what you got,
my
Carol Ann.
Yeah, if you got my reference.
There was another Wombo video tweeted at us.
Oh, okay.
All
right.
Carol Ann is a reference to Poltergeist.
Oh, okay.
This Wombo
She was
video
caught. She was caught in the television.
Hey, the Wombo videos, they're taking the world by storm out there right now.
When did this become a thing?
Predators fans have been using it for a little while.
I saw a Tiger Woods one a few days ago.
There's a Tiger Woods one.
First one I saw.
There's been a lot of Pecorine ones. A lot of it. Like the way I started using it yesterday is VJ on Twitter, who's a big Preds fan, tweeted after Ellie Tolvanen's goal, and it was just him singing like "What Is Love" or something like that. It was great. So then I made the one at Rex Road, and here we are. Everybody's tweeting us Wombo videos.
I'm not seeing it.
And I spent over under 3 hours last night.
I'll take the over on that.
It was over. That's for sure. Maybe we'll have some more. Oh, dude. Sit there for 3 hours making some Wombo videos last night.
You have to, manually do it?
Yeah, man.
I thought you just put it in the app.
Well, you do. I mean, the app does most of the work, but you got to find the photos. I had to do some digging to find yours.
Well, we've been tweeting out that.
I know, but I had to go back and find it.
What you should find is the one of him in the Michigan State basketball uniform.
Oh, I really should.
Oh, God.
See if we can do that today. Maybe that'll be my project for today. That does it for
now you're going to help Paul
please do
Kaharski?
this.
Come on.
That does
Don't
it
feed
for us
him.
today here on Robbie and Rex Road. Thanks to everybody joining us on Twitch and on YouTube. We'll be back streaming tomorrow and be back 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Darren Donick and Chase coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.